there is another case. 1975, November 5th in Snowflake, Arizona. They were driving home. They all pile up in the truck and they see this giant UFO. Travis, being really bold and curious, gets really close to it. Starts hearing a noise as if it's like powering up. What he remembers is he wakes up on this table. He sees this bright light. He sees these bulbous heads hovering over him. Well, I did ask him this question, if his feet were like hanging off the table. And he goes, no, it's a human-sized table, which I thought was interesting. There's a case, 1954, Jesse Rostenberg describes the same beings. White, orange jumpsuits, jacked, perfect specimens. So I went down that rabbit hole, ended up speaking with Joe McMoneagle, who's the first accepted remote viewer that they hired in the psychic spy program in the 70s during Project Stargate to study the stuff.
CIA.
Yeah.
What would happen?
Hey guys, thank you so much as always for watching this video. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button as well. It is the #1 thing that helps these videos get into the algorithm and allows us to grow our channel. So thank you to all of you who have already subscribed, and thank you to all of you who are doing so now. Enjoy this episode with Chris Ramsay.
All right, you were just telling me this off camera, Chris, but there's more to the Zimbabwe story than even I know. We were talking about the 1994 sighting and everything.
Yeah.
And you said they were happening like the night before?
There was, yeah. There's a lot of sightings the night before. You know, Randall Nickerson did a great job on the, what was it called? The Ariel Phenomenon. Great movie. Check it out. I would highly recommend watching that. He was so close to everybody involved, you know, with Emily Trim, who is, sadly passed away not too long ago. He was very close with her and close to everybody there. But yeah, he interviewed a pilot as well. I think you can check this out on their YouTube channel. I don't think it made the cut of the movie.
Oh, wow.
But the pilot talks about like them picking something up on the radar as well that kind of moves across the radar, and they're like, it's probably a glitch or whatever.
The night before these kids saw it.
Yeah. There was stuff going on in space the night before, but there was also space debris re-entering orbit. And I think that a lot of debunkers and a lot of people who were looking for something turn to that. But every other day we get something, re-entering orbit. So
yeah.
But yeah, that and the fact that, a lot of people, saw some stuff the night before. On top of that, there is a giant uranium mine close by as well. So
it's a uranium mine right there?
Yeah.
That's nice and convenient.
Yeah. So it seems,
what do the aliens want with uranium?
I don't know. Maybe they just want to know what we want with uranium.
That's what I think.
They're
just studying us where they're little squirrels or ants.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They're like, don't play with that. Don't play with it. What are you doing?
Yeah, that's the case. That was the one that very early on in me really thinking about this stuff made me go, whoa.
Yeah.
Because you have a lot of kids.
Kids, man.
Now, kids, listen, there's always some sort of explanation that could say the other side's true. But when you look at how they describe potentially encountering those ETs, out hopping on the logs just off where their school campus was there in Zimbabwe, and the consistency of all of them describing it, and then the patterns that they go through, like the telepathic nature of the communication specifically being about how, you humans have no idea what you're capable of, or, basically like themes of don't blow yourselves up, like as a human race, etc. The size of the beings, in the 3-foot area, the way they looked. This is all pre-internet era.
Yeah.
So it's not like people could be on like Reddit threads and like do copycat in that way.
Yep.
And when you look at all the different sightings around the world, across the continents, everywhere, the ones I'm thinking of are pretty much every continent except Antarctica that I'm aware of, although there's a lot of stories from Antarctica. It's like when you look at all those sightings from World War II on, the patterns of what they describe are very, very similar. And that's what gives me pause, because I'm like, okay, I know all these people didn't like come together in a group in a chat room somewhere in 1971 when, this is happening over a lot of different years, again, all pre-internet.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And Rua in Zimbabwe, there's a lot of really interesting things there to look at as well. So not only were there children witnesses, there were teachers that witnessed that stuff too. And people forget that. There were adults that just were afraid to come forward. But there were way more witnesses than were documented in the documentaries.
Yeah.
Just a lot of people didn't want to come forward.
Yeah.
And one thing that I like is you look at the drawings and they're not all exactly alike. Now, upon initial inspection, you might think that that is, that leads, oh, maybe they're lying. But actually, for me, it tells me that they're telling the truth, because when you remember something, if everybody remembers it exactly the way it happened, that's a script. Right? And this is like there's just enough deviation between the stories where you're like, no, there's clearly, the fundamental story here seems to be true. Yeah.
There was also, I think it's the principal of the school, someone high up in the school later came forward years later apologizing because she didn't believe them.
Yeah.
And once she had seen all the evidence that they presented, and obviously like the studies that had been done by Dr. John Mack from Harvard and all that, she was like, oh my God, like it seemed crazy, of course, but I should have listened. And that's nuts to me, because even if something like this did happen, wherever it happens in the world, we are trained to be like, wait, what?
Yeah. Absolutely, man. And, it's one of the things where you start to go, why, right? Why children? Why this place? Now, if you look at that school, it was an international school.
Yes.
There's children from all around the world, all races and backgrounds and religions. And, as I was talking to a friend of mine, Luigi Venditelli, who is also really close with Emily Trim, he's currently working on the Bob Lazar movie. And he was telling me, like, if you were to sort of test humanity on, contact and how, what would happen if contact happened, that's how you would do it. People say, oh, I want it to land on the White House lawn. No one's going to believe it.
It's the biggest UFO ever.
Yeah, exactly. But no one's going to believe it.
No one's going to believe it.
It's going to feel like a setup. It'll feel like them. It'll feel like like some type of U.S. military thing, like a Psy-Op. No one's going to buy it. So, for them to do it at a school where there's innocent children, and like, this is like the perfect way to make contact when you think about it.
Yeah. I actually, I try to think as best I can, which is completely impossible, but from what we can as like a human brain, I try to think about what would I be thinking if I were like an advanced civilization, whatever it is, and I were coming here to study the people here. And I've always wondered about like the simulation theory, and I'm not talking about Rysverk's theory.
Sure.
I'm talking about them literally wanting to simulate what would happen if, blank, as an example. When you hear about like a UFO being sighted, whether it be like Lonnie Zamora out in the desert where he actually saw it and they allowed him to be seen or whatever, if a civilization were able to like bend wormholes or whatever, or bend the speed of time and to be able to get here, I got to think they figured out invisibility or, speeds that are so high that no one can ever be seen, or be able to prevent anything like a crash in our universe. So that all being equal, it's like maybe then they're like, ooh, let's see what happens if we crash.
Yeah.
Show them one. And just see how people will react to it, because most people won't believe it. But like, what will the civilization down there on Earth do when someone comes home and goes, yo, I just saw an alien in the desert?
Yeah, the donation theory too, it's really interesting. I've given a lot of thought on especially like the abduction side and a lot of the sightings, and what it seems to me, it's like the kind of working theory that I have right now is that we are dealing with some type of system. And the reason I say that, like, are you familiar with like, and I hate quoting 4chan as being a source here, but there has been like, this one guy that came out on 4chan who was like, oh, I worked at an underground thing that we were looking at this mobile construction unit in the ocean, this giant thing, and like in the Atlantic that we're tracking that deploys these UFOs, and they go right back to it. And now after that, he said at the end, which is something that stuck with me, notice yourself coming back to this thread. And I swear every time we get an update from whether it's Congress or we get some, oh, they're in the ocean or the drone flaps or whatever it is, it always leads back to what that guy was saying. So my conviction level, started really low on that, and it's been growing ever since. And so I'd put that into this theory as, okay, if I were to, let's say I have the technology to bounce around the universe at will. Okay. we've established it. It's been billions of years. Our civilization has been around, and I can now blink anywhere I want in the universe. Let's say I have that technology. You would find 100 billion exoplanets that are capable of sustaining life.
Yeah.
Right. Instantly. Now, because you're so advanced, you probably wouldn't even show up to these planets yourself. You would have some type of von Neumann-esque probe that lands in the oceans, that's buried, sequestered deep into, out of reach, that deploys a sort of immune system that the planet has, this sort of white blood cell, that if ever the scales are tipped too far in one direction, it would come out, shut down the nukes. It would come out during times of war. It would come out, and then go right back down. Now, these ships would require sometimes, especially for like the genetic stuff that they're probably doing as well, because if you're sort of creating this simulated panspermia, you would have to, not only feed it plant life, but also probably some type of, mammalian life form or all sorts of life form from all around the universe. So what you would do is you would genetically modify this plant life you got from this planet, bring it over here. You would grab an animal from over here, and you do this to all the planets, right? So that life thrives everywhere, right? That's kind of, and so there's so many cases of these aliens. They show up and they're grabbing dirt samples, they're grabbing rock samples, or there's genetic modifications, and then they just leave. And so I'm thinking maybe this is also just part of the system where it's like this sort of eco zoo, this biome that they're trying to preserve and maintain. And if you were to do genetic modifications, you might need some type of biological drone in order to do that. That is part of the system. So now we have these genderless grays taking people, telling them the same things over and over. We're not going to hurt you, proceed to hurt you, show you how bad you are to the planet, and then put you right back in your bed. And, like this kind of like system over and over and over. Now, these ships don't have toilets. They don't have kitchens. They don't have pictures hanging on the wall.
Is that just because we haven't, from the people who have described them and claim they've been in them, they haven't ever seen those things?
I mean, yeah, but you can also look at people like Bob Lazar. If you believe what he says, like, it's barren. These things have nothing in them, no controls even, and just seats, although he didn't go on the top floor of this UFO, for him, there was no control area. And then you look at some other cases where people talk about how these beings interact sort of psychically or psionically with the technology, and that without the beings, these crafts can't actually function. These beings are like a part of the craft. They're interacting with like maybe the microtubules in their brain and to interact with like this quantum field that, the UFO lives in. I don't know. But that, if I were this system, if I were this like AI system in place and a UFO crash, I wouldn't be too worried. Because as soon as the being dies, you can't fly the craft anyways. And I think that's what's been happening. I think a lot of the stuff, if there is recovery stuff, which I believe there is, I think we're just dealing with their tech that we can't do anything with. And that's why they're not too worried about it.
Did you know that 1 in 8 Americans are currently prescribed anti-anxiety medications? It is a quiet epidemic that is sweeping the West right now. And people who start on these medications have a very hard time quitting. Recovering from benzodiazepine addiction or alcohol addiction is essentially like recovering from brain damage. But what if I told you that a legal mushroom that has been weirdly embedded into our culture is helping people to finally get off these GABAergic substances? I'm talking about Amanita muscaria, the little red top mushroom with the white dots that's depicted in Alice in Wonderland and Mario. This is a legal mushroom to buy, possess, and sell in every state except Louisiana, and thousands of people are using it to get off benzodiazepines and alcohol. This mushroom isn't only for people looking to quit their anti-anxiety medications. People are tapping into its power as a natural nootropic for focus during studies and work, a non-addictive alcohol replacement at parties, a dream-enhancing tool for vivid nights, and even a gentle aid for pain recovery. For years, there was a massive gap in the market where nobody in the United States was reliably importing this mushroom. That's where Minnesota Nice comes in, providing you with the highest quality raw Amanita and consumer-ready Amanita products at a price that you can afford. So use Minnesota Nice to help find your harmony today. You can go to www.mnniceethno.com/Julian. That link is in my description below, and use code JD22 for 22% off your first order. That's www.mnniceethno.com/Julian. and niceethno.com/Julian, link in description below, and use code JD22 for 22% off.
And the problem though is that would signify that we are so far behind them, which actually this isn't a problem. This would make sense now I'm thinking about it. We're so far behind them that it doesn't even matter to them. They're like, oh, they got one of our,
Don't care.
Yeah, don't worry about it. The way you describe like just picking up dirt from, one of 100 billion exoplanets or something like that, and we happen to be that could make sense, even though in our world, we're trying to figure out how to colonize Mars just to get people there that they could survive and not die on the place.
That's right.
These guys could be so far ahead that they have 100 billion Marses that they've already made Earths.
Well, even better than that, because if you were trying to preserve the seed of human life, or the flame, right? The flame of consciousness that we're trying to keep alive. We're trying to be interstellar. We're trying to go to Mars and do all these things. Well, if you had that technology, you wouldn't be looking for barren radioactive rocks. Living underground or in a bubble doesn't sound like a lot of fun. Instead, you would find exoplanets that can already harbor some type of primitive life and then genetically modify it with your own DNA so that you're preserving your seed in these other planets, and then just monitor them with your system. And every 1,000 years, you come down in a chariot of fire and or a fiery wheel from the sky, and you give them metallurgy, or you give them religion, or you give them, agriculture, and you allow them to sort of, grow as you're just checking up on them. Religion is important to build society. Without religion, we wouldn't have Rome, right? And Rome was like one of the first major, powers of the world. Before that, everything was tribal.
Yeah.
Before that, small villages would get together and they were fighting over power, and they would never flourish. So it was due to religion that we have modern society today. Like, it's a very important thing that was introduced into our civilization that allowed us to have a bigger sort of colony with consequences and everything. Now, is religion still, valuable today? That's debatable. But I think at the time, I think it was extremely valuable in order to start civilization.
Would they give us religion because they, in their advanced civilization, this is a hypothetical question,
sure,
I guess, in your opinion, they as an advanced civilization experience religion themselves, whatever their version of it is, and so they know the power that type of thing, like a lower level of it, I guess in this case, can hold over society when you give them complete unknowns because they can't know nearly as much as we, the aliens in this case, know?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, how do pets, how do they think? What do they think about us? They might consider us some type of god that can summon food all the time. We don't know that, right? So we know what's best for them. The way that they interpret us, is up to how we present ourselves. Yeah. Because we're just so much more advanced. So I think if you were to seed the universe, you would need several ingredients. And then I think there's a prime directive, like kind of like in Star Trek. I think when you reach a certain point, maybe that's not the development of nukes, but maybe that's us throwing the nukes away. That becomes like, oh, welcome to the family type deal. The reason I think another reason to support that it might be a system, at least 50% of it, maybe there are rogue entities coming here that are, that look like giant cats or something. I don't know. But I think for the most part, there is a system we're interacting with. But one of the reasons I think we're interacting with a system is because it seems like every time we have a war, every time we have any type of strife, we start seeing orbs or Foo Fighters or what have you, or flaps over, in DC and whatnot. And so, you look at things like perhaps Skywatcher and what they're doing. I wouldn't put it past them to simulate war games out in these ranges with Northrop Grumman, right? The CIA was doing, according to Lou, Project Interloper, where they were dragging nukes out in the middle of the ocean to try and, attract these things. Right. If you're an intelligent species, these aren't fish, dude. These aren't fish. Like, so whatever is, if you're blowing stuff up, like you look at Skinwalker, right? They're throwing rockets in the air, and that's where the phenomenon shows up. Maybe that's just like some type of response system, some immune response that's like, hey, what are you guys doing? Not necessarily the intelligence behind the AI, but just that like automatic. And we found a way to sort of short circuit that and make them appear through these, through these events. And then on the other side of that, I think, you get people like Chris Bledsoe or, even Dorothy Izat in Canada, where the opposite happens, where like, these psionic assets as well, they claim that beaming out like pure love and whatever will attract them, right? So maybe there's two sides to that. Maybe it's like, oh, if we're bad to each other, they show up to try and shut it down. But maybe if we start being good to each other, that's where they show up and they're like, hey, welcome to the family. Like, who knows?
You talked to Bledsoe on your show.
Yeah.
Right. What do you think of that story?
I think initially something did happen. I think there are classic marks of an abduction. I do think he was taken. He even says he was taken. But if you look at the case, there are 3 other witnesses that saw these glowing orbs. They didn't see him take him or any of that, but they were present during the arrival of these things, and were being apparently chased in their pickup trucks by these glowing molten, orbs. And so I do think initially something happened. After that, I think, it's a matter of taking him at his word, and as someone who's researching, that's hard for me to just put all my eggs into. I'm open to the idea and I'm happy to shelve that or file that, catalog that information. Yeah. For instance, the date, April 2027, we're talking Easter 2020 or 2026 actually. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, all right, we'll put that in that category and see what happens. Yeah. Right. But I don't think it's healthy to say I believe or I don't believe. I think that sort of binary thinking is what prevents data collection. I think if we do that, we automatically filter all information, whether we believe or don't believe. We filter the information that comes through. I'd rather create a space, a safe zone for everybody to speak, take the information judgment-free, allow them to really tell whatever they want to say, and then parse through the information myself over time and hold it up against other connections I might make. So
yeah, that's one of the things I like about you. Like, your shit and you bring in all these different people. You've had in all like the biggest names. There's still a few more on the list you got to get in. I'm sure you'll get them in at some point. But like, you let them go through the whole story. You ask them step by step what happened. It's like getting it down on documented record. And also, by the way, the production of your show is amazing. Thanks. Bro. Like it looks incredible. But like, you also, as a fan of this thing, you want the truth. You want to know, all right, what are we hearing from the government that's real? What seems to be bullshit? And like, I've seen you comment on some of that, some of those things, while still like maintaining of like trying not to, make enemies out of people or do stuff like that, which I think is great. But it is a tough job because it's a space where the unknown unknowns are so vast. We're even like beyond hypotheticals to a point there that you are going to run, just statistically, you're going to run into a lot of stories that end up being total bullshit.
Absolutely.
And then it's like, is that a part of the plot? Is that a part of the thing where it's like, all right, this is how you poison the well. You throw Jason Sands in there, and then the people that believe that, it's like, see, look, they'll believe anything. You know what I mean?
Could be. That's absolutely right. And if you were to do that, you don't even need to do that purposely. People do that on their own without even realizing it.
Yeah.
I'll take it in the context of like a magic trick, for instance.
You're pretty good at that.
Pretty good at that, yeah. And there's a lot of correlation between how someone experiences a magic trick versus how they experience the phenomenon. And so, magicians know this, but as soon as you perform to somebody, we kind of stick around because what we do during our performances, for the most part, there's a lot of stuff involved, with sleight of hand, misdirection, showmanship, all this stuff, and suggestion and whatnot. But one thing that happens is the engineering of memory. That's the main component of a magic trick, which is why it doesn't always work best on camera. It's always better to do live because looking back, you might be like, oh, there was this little offbeat moment that didn't seem important that I forgot about.
Yeah.
That's now on camera. And so magicians will take a piece of information that isn't important, right? Make it seem really important. And then take a piece of information that is absolutely critical to the magic trick working and dismissing it as if it's nothing, being very flippant about it. So your brain is just going to take the big pieces, but it doesn't have time or storage to remember all the tiny nonsense that we threw aside. And so the memory you have instantly of the trick is different than what happened instantly. And that happens with experiencers as well. It happens with everybody. They're not unique in this, in that if I want to tell you what I felt during a magic trick, I will embellish for two reasons. One, I don't want you to think that I'm easily fooled, right? So I will just round off the edges a little bit more, and I'll think nothing of it. They're like, no, these edges don't really matter. No one's going to notice. And it's just kind of like, no, it didn't make a sound, but you were in your car. How do you know it didn't make a sound? No, we had the window down. So you'll round off the edges a little bit. And then secondly, firstly, you don't want to appear foolish. But secondly, I think the more, how do I put this? The more you experience magic or like the phenomenon, like this stuff starts to like, your reality is malleable, like from the get-go. Everything we experience, 100%. Your sight, the sound, and everything. And so as soon as someone else can have agency over that for you, I mean, nothing should be taken into account, right? It's not admissible. It shouldn't be admissible in anything. You know, memory is so bad, and we can play around with it. So I think for those reasons, I think experiencers as well. You know, and here's the second reason: they want you to feel like you were there. That's the other thing, right? So if I'm doing a magic trick, I'm gonna try and say, oh, it was amazing. He was this high off the ground, when in reality it was like this high, right? But I want you to feel like you were there. I'm not trying to give you data. I'm trying to give you emotion so that you feel it, right? So an experiencer might do the same thing. They might be like, no, it was like the hair was standing up on my head. It's like, well, how do you know that? You can't see your hair.
They're trying to re-feel like they were there, which means it may not be a perfect rendition of it, you're saying.
Yeah, they're trying to make you feel what they felt, which is a human thing to do. It has nothing to do with lying, has nothing to do with being, just not telling the truth. It has everything to do with human connection.
Yes.
And so, through that, you have to filter the experiences, and it's impossible to do so. And so we know there's truth there, but some people might think that, oh, it's a grift. When in reality, the memory is just so bad from these events. Like, it's so bad. It's not something you can count on. And so we just have to count on the stories, and we have to kind of like parse through it ourselves. But yeah.
Without naming names, have you, not even necessarily just on camera, but just in all your years of looking at this and talking to people, have you sat with people that are at least known a little bit by others out there, not just like a rando on Twitter or something like that, but have you sat with someone who's telling you a story and you're just like, this is complete bullshit?
I wouldn't say complete bullshit, but like I said, I think there's reason to believe that everyone telling a story, if you've told it more than once, you're making that story better as you go along. Think of the greatest tales, when you're with your buddies and you're like, oh, I got a story for you. How does that story compare to when you first, you tweak it a little bit just to get a reaction or to make people feel like they were there, or to get a laugh where it got a laugh that one time. You might throw that back in there.
Yep.
And so I think that's what's happening with these stories. And the longer we wait between the event and the telling of it, I mean, we have to assume the more muddy it gets. But that doesn't mean there wasn't something there initially. And so I think with a lot of experiencers, with Whitley Strieber, with Chris Bledsoe, with even Travis Walton. Travis Walton's different a little bit. Travis Walton doesn't waver at all. He's been one to this is it. And he gets quite defensive about any other detail being added on. He makes it very clear that this is what happened. But, you read a lot of books and you kind of it becomes subjective a little bit over time, and they start adding things. And I'm not saying it's not true. It's just hard to know.
Well, it's human nature, like you're saying. Your explanation it's in line with a lot of things. Like, you'll hear different psychology experts talk about with eyewitness testimony in court and things like that. Like, stories, people it's not that they're lying, but sometimes details will change
All
over
the time,
just
yeah.
based on what reactions are when you're telling it and time passed and like remembering things that weren't there and stuff like that. It's just natural to what it is. So the balance becomes trying to find the things that are the common thread, the things that make sense in one story. And then also when you have things like this, where it's like people talking about experiences or potentially witnessing a UFO or something like that, to where you can line up commonalities across the stories pattern wise. So you having Travis Walton in is pretty wild, because I'm naturally very skeptical of a lot of experience or stories. And there's some big names out there that, like, in my opinion, like you mentioned it yourself, like there are some that are just such clear grifters to me that even if there was something that happened at some point in their life, they're so far beyond that I just don't take anything they say seriously. That said, Travis Walton, you know, he was on Joe Rogan's show like 6 years ago, something like that. And he's been on some other big shows over the years. And this is a story that's 30, 40 years old.
50 in November.
50 years old. Wow.
Yeah.
God damn. Point being, though, it down to the fact that his details stay the same. And like you said, he's strict with it. There's something about this one that even on the surface, though it sounds crazy, like when you watch him tell it, you're like, I don't know if that's exactly what happened, because who the fuck knows? Yeah. But like, I know he believes that, number one. And number two, something happened there. Like, and just for people out there who aren't familiar with this story or forget it, can you just give the broad details of what happened when he was out in the desert there?
Yeah, it was. He was actually in the forest. It was 1975, November 5th, in Snowflake, Arizona. He was a logger, like a lumberjack. Him and 6 of his buddies, including his brother, his crew, basically, were finishing.
Desert? Sorry.
Yeah,
my bad.
Arizona.
No, why? I was
Arizona.
I was thinking that other thing.
Okay. Yeah. And so, they were out there. They were finishing their shift. They were driving home. They all pile up in the truck, and they see this light in a clearing. It's kind of a weird light, pretty bright. They drive up to the clearing and notice this giant UFO, this giant flying disc that's glowing, pulsating. It's got lights around it. It's dazzling. I would say, I think probably like 50 to 80 feet, like a big pretty big craft. And they all say, let's get the hell out of here. Like, what are we doing? And they're kicking the seat, like, drive, go, go, go. Because you have to understand, seeing something like that is like eldritch. It's like, it's earth shattering, right?
I don't think you can fathom it.
It shifts your paradigm instantly. It's, ontological shock, whatever you want to use, but it breaks your reality. And so they're like screaming, get the hell out of here. And Travis, being really bold and curious, gets out of the truck, approaches the craft, gets really close to it, like really close, starts hearing a noise as if it's like powering up, like a swell, and then gets hit with like this beam. And everybody who saw him get hit, instantly they thought he was dead.
Right.
They're like, oh, he's dead. Let's get out of here. So they book it. They start driving away. Now they're panicking because they're like, this is crazy. They actually end up stopping, being like, we got to go back. We got to get him, obviously. And they go back, and he's nowhere to be found. They're combing this place, and they can't find him. So they end up going back into town, trying to get their story straight. What do we tell the cops, right? They get the cops in. Eventually, they tell them the story. The cop now thinks there's like a murder cover-up happening, like a bad one at that.
Yeah, I mean, where else would your head go? You're
exactly.
Like,
he's doing his job.
Yeah.
So, they went out that night to look. They didn't find anything. So then the next day again, they had like a 3-day search party, like comb the forest. No sign of him whatsoever. And now this thing is starting to make like national headlines. Well, 5 days and 6 hours later, Travis, on some remote payphone, I think calls his girlfriend and is like, "Hey, I'm here," but he's like, obviously they're all distressed, barely talking, very, very shaken up, emaciated, dehydrated, and they pick him up, they bring him home. Frenzy of a media starts showing up to his house and trying to get the scoop, obviously. And he ends up being convinced by, I think, his brother to, do regression, hypnotherapy. And through the regression was able to realize sort of what happened And what he remembers through that regression is he woke up on a table. Now, this was depicted by Fire in the Sky movie in 1993. D.B. Sweeney plays Travis Walton. They completely butchered this part. So in Fire in the Sky, they make it like a horrific horror movie where he's like, you know, they're
You gotta sell it,
drilling
Chris.
stuff
Come
in
on.
his eyes. I know, it's Hollywood, but they did him dirty on that because they actually cut that part out of the script when they gave him the script.
Oh, and then they put it back in.
Yeah, I bought the original storyboard or a copy of the original storyboard and showed it to Travis. And he was like, holy cow. He's like, they never showed me this.
Wow.
And so he's never seen that. So they purposely like omitted that. So
That's kind of fucked.
It is. That's Hollywood.
Yeah.
Did you know that there's an online cannabis company that ships federally legal THC right to your door? And they found a way to combine THC with carefully selected functional ingredients to target nearly every mood and health concern that you can think of? The company I'm talking about is mood.com and their incredible line of functional gummies. Today, you can get 20% off your first order at mood.com using promo code Julian at checkout. That link is in my description below. Forget one-size-fits-all supplements that only get you high. Mood's functional gummies are optimized to kick in as little as 15 minutes and take you to the mood you're looking for. Whether that's Mind Magic gummies for deep work and creativity, PMS support to ease cramps and balance mood swings, or their sexual euphoria gummies to help you feel ready for action and turn every touch into a full body experience. Listen, you can find gummies to just get you high pretty much everywhere these days. But Mood's functional gummies combine premium, federally legal THC with targeted botanicals to help you get in the perfect mood, usually in as little as 15 minutes. And everything ships discreetly right to your door. No dispensary lines, no awkward conversations, just better days and nights delivered to your doorstep. Best of all, not only is every Mood product backed by a 100-day satisfaction guarantee, but as I mentioned, our listeners are going to get 20% off their first order using code Julian at checkout. So head on over to mood.com, link in my description below, find the functional gummy that matches exactly what you're looking for, and let Mood help you discover your perfect mood. Once again, don't forget to use promo code Julian when you check out to save 20% off your first order.
So, you know, they wanted that at the time, but I think what happened was way more interesting than that movie. So he wakes up on this table, he sees this bright light, he sees these sort of bulbous heads hovering over him, and he focuses in. Now, at this point, his brain is pounding out of his skull, his chest hurts. He literally feels like he's dying. He's in so much pain, he feels like he's dying. And he sees these creatures. They are about 4.5 feet tall, 4 to 4.5 feet tall, giant white heads. So not your typical grays. They've got big eyes, but they're brown, like sort of hazel colored. And they're wearing orange, sort of loose fitting orange jumpers. And he's on this table, and now he's freaking out. So he's like, who are you? Where am I? He realizes he's not at the hospital, which he thought he was. And he gets up off this table. His table is low to the ground. The ceiling's pretty low. The air is like musty and humid and hard to breathe, kind of claustrophobic. He reaches on this table, and he finds this rod, this clear rod, he says was heavier than glass, but was transparent. And he doesn't know what it was for. He was panicking. He starts swinging it at them. He's like, get away from me, get away. He notices there were other tools, like, sort of windy, metallic tools you don't want to see, type deal.
Oh, like they're going to go to town.
Yeah, or, later on, he's come to, his thought was that they fixed him. That he got too close, they accidentally, beamed him or something, and then he was left for dead, and then they revived him, they brought him back. Like, that's what he thought. Because he's like, if they wanted, he's like, they could have dropped me off on a meteor somewhere in the asteroid belt if they wanted to. They didn't have to fix me. They didn't have to bring me back. So he's swinging at these things. What frightened him the most, and this is like a wild detail, is their facial expressions never changed. And he took that as a sign of hostility. Because if you look at someone, you're going to fight them, and they're just like stone cold, that's like, you got to give me something, man. You got to give me a smile. You got to give me a frown. You got to give me something, or else I'm going to think, this is weird and we're going to fight. And so they weren't giving him anything. They were kind of just like, doll face looking at him. And in hindsight, he's like, if they were telepathic, they wouldn't need facial features anymore.
They know what he's thinking.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they leave. They scurry out of this room. And
he's not, so he was never like tied down, or he was never handcuffed or
he has
anything
clothes.
Like that. Yeah.
He was on a table. I did ask him this question, which I thought was really interesting. It's a detail I never heard before. I asked him if his legs if his feet were like hanging off the bed, off the table. And he goes, no. So I said, so it's a human-sized table, which I thought was interesting.
Wait, if the feet were hanging off the table.
Because they're small beings. I mean, the
Right.
ceiling is low. He had to crouch down.
Right.
Why would the table be human-sized,
Yes,
right?
so his feet would be on the ground.
Yeah. So that I thought was really interesting. I was like, oh, there's a little
They've done
factory
this
somewhere
before.
and they're like making human-sized tables, right?
Yeah.
And so they go out this opening. They kind of scurry away pretty quickly. He then walks down this windy, narrow hallway, sort of crouched down, and it's turning. Now you can imagine the fear that he must have that around any of these corners, there might be another one of these things just waiting to pop out, right?
I don't think I can imagine that fear. This is like...
Dude, so he's walking around this corner thinking, I got to look for the way out. I have to find a way out. He doesn't know he's in a spaceship, right? He doesn't know where he is. So he's looking for a way out. He gets into this room where all of a sudden, as soon as he walks in, he can see what he says is like a star map. He doesn't know if it was a projection or if it was actual space, but the entire room that he's in is just space. And there's a chair in the middle of the room. And so he sits in the chair and he starts like fiddling with the buttons. He's looking for a door. And all of a sudden the star map starts shifting around him really quickly without him moving, which is kind of disorienting. And instantly a door opens up behind him. Now, before we get into these beings, the beings that he had just seen, there is another case. If you want to look into it, it is William Herman, 1968.
Ooh, I don't know
Or
this one.
1978, sorry. So it's a few
Bill
years.
Herman?
Yes, it's a few years after. This guy had been taken multiple times, according to him. He has actually great pictures of UFOs.
Like that he took of the act, not a rendition.
of a craft, and it's like tilted at a 45 degrees. Some great pictures. You can pull them up.
All right, let's get that.
Hey guys, if you haven't already subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. It's a huge help. Thank you.
And so Bill Herman describes the same beings. White, sort of pasty skin, big heads, 4.5 feet tall, brown eyes with orange jumpsuits. He describes the same beings wearing the same things. I thought was really interesting.
And he was on record in 1978 describing.
Yeah, this was 3 years after Travis, but prior to any full publication of his work or his experience.
Is that the picture you're talking about?
He's got multiple. Yep, those are the ones, which are pretty remarkable.
And he released these back then.
These were put out by Wendell Stevens in a book called Contact from Reticulum in, I think, probably the 70s or 80s.
Right, so a long time ago.
Mhm.
Okay, that's not like in the last
probably in
few
the
days.
80s. Sorry, in the 80s, yeah.
Meaning it's not like some AI picture from 20... Yeah.
That's film.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
whether that's real or not, I don't know, but it looks pretty cool. And I like the fact that they're kind of out of focus. I think that's how it would be.
Yeah.
Right? Especially if there's like some weird propulsion involved. So anyways, Bill Herman describes the same beings, orange jumpsuits, like same physical characteristics, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, maybe he went to San Quentin.
Maybe it's a big Psy-Op. So anyways, put those beings aside for a second. He's in this big dark room. There's a chair in the middle of the room. And then behind him, a door opens. And he looks, and there's this tall, sort of Scandinavian-looking gentleman with a sort of straight, long hair, but like straight cut, like a page boy haircut, super weird. Tight blue jumpsuit, athletic, tall, and blue eyes, and wearing, this is the weird detail, a fishbowl kind of helmet over his head. Now you're thinking, okay, that's where it loses a lot of people. That's like, was this the Jetsons? What are we talking about here? Some mid-century alien. Yeah. There's a case, 1954, Jesse Rostenberg. If you look this up, you can type in Staffordshire UFO. She's on camera, and she gets pulled out by her 2 children who are like, Mommy, there's a UFO outside. There's a flying saucer, I wouldn't call it UFO back then, but there's a flying saucer. And she's like, don't be stupid. She comes outside, and sure enough, hanging over her house is a silver disc kind of like tilted. And she describes it as a Mexican hat looking thing. And she's very sincere in this video. It's an interview with her. And she goes, the 2 gentlemen, they're sitting side by side. This is 1954. two gentlemen are sitting side by side, and they had these page boy bob haircuts, these blue suits, and what looked like fish bowls over their heads.
Oh yeah, there we got a picture of her right there holding up a
The
rendition of
same
that.
fish bowl type, you know. And this is, again, prior to internet, you know, you would have to, what a coincidence that, you know, Travis Walton, days after his traumatic experience, would go to I don't even know where he would find this interview.
Right.
You know, or it's a coincidence that they're both tall, blonde figures with fish bowls over their heads.
That's what I'm saying. This
That's
is where
a
it gets
wild
weird.
coincidence.
Yep.
So I showed that to Travis. I don't think he'd ever heard of that before. So he's a little surprised by that. And then, so this being grabs him. He's thinking to himself, like, oh my God, thank goodness, you know, a person. Like, there's these creatures over here, and he's yelling frantically, where am I? What are you doing? I'm dying. Like, he's yelling. And they're just stoic. Stone-faced, don't respond. He's thinking maybe the helmet's interfering with their hearing or something. So he's like, you know, he doesn't know what's
Are
going on.
your ears fucked?
Yeah, he's like, take the helmet off. and so this guy grabs Travis by the arm. They walk through the door down a platform. Now they're coming out of the UFO, but they're in like a hangar.
Did it feel like a human was grabbing him? Meaning, like,
Strong.
when he grabbed him, he's strong, but it feels like a human. It's not like he grabs him and a force field comes over him or something
No
like that?
force field, just incredible strength. Now, mind you, he was in a weakened state, but he was still mid-20s. He was a boxer. He
Yeah.
was a logger. He was on adrenaline. I mean, strong guy.
Yeah.
And yeah, just like nothing, just ragdolled him they're coming down this ramp, coming out of the flying saucer into this quarter of a cylinder, is the way he described it, room, massive. Lights that line the ceiling that he thought was like sunlight. He was like, it was like daytime. And he gets there and he sees, lined up against the wall, pill or tic-tac shaped UFOs that are like chromium, sort of liquid mercury, as he put it. It's sort of like the bean in Chicago type deal. And they're lining up the walls, joined by two other of these beings, a man and a woman, no helmets this time, jacked, perfect specimens. They had a familial resemblance, so like siblings almost. They're all, you know, and they put him on a bed, and then they put a mask over his mouth, like a triangular mask without a tube or anything, and he passed out. That's the last thing he remembers. And then he remembers sort of waking up in the street, seeing the craft sort of just go up and to space, a different craft than the one that picked him up or beamed him. And yeah, that was his experience. Other than that, he doesn't waver. Like that's been his story since day one, since he did his regression. And so arguably, I think we can all agree, way more interesting than like scary gray aliens. Like,
Oh yeah, I mean, it's
this
a full process, and
Yeah.
it's like, and then they let him go, and that comes back to how many other, if this is true, how many other times have they done that? Why are they doing that? Is this again like going back to that kind of simulation thing? Like, oh, let's simulate how this little human goes back to the other humans and tries to make sense of this with them.
Yeah, and why are they working together? Like Travis thinks that maybe the little ones might have been in charge and they sent the big ones in because they looked human and that would not scare him, which I thought is an interesting theory. But also maybe they're just two factions and they're like, hey, you know, we hurt this human guy. We don't know what to do with him. And Travis says that he never had a telepathic connection with any of them. And so he thought that whatever they did to him or whatever he was hit with disrupted that, which is why he was able to sort of fight them off, which is why they had to use like analog technology to like sedate him rather than anesthetize him through mental, you know, faculties or whatever they, you know, however they do it normally. So he was like kind of in maybe an immune state to their psi ability. Who knows?
How did he get put into the regression analysis psychiatry? Like, whose idea was that, and when exactly did that happen?
I don't think it happened too long after, because I think he was so troubled by what had happened to him. Like he was catatonic.
Oh, I can
Yeah,
imagine.
he didn't even know what happened to him. He was just, you couldn't talk to him when pressed on like, where were you type deal. He would just shut down. And if you look at the interview, that Joe Rogan did with him, or you look at the interview that I did with him, he's like kind of happy, go lucky.
Yeah.
And then as soon as he talks about it, he has 1,000-yard stare and he doesn't even look at you in the eye. He's looking at something else. He's like there again. And that's heavy, man. That's really heavy. You can't fake that. Like, you know, my dad was 30 years in the military and had PTSD, severe PTSD from like multiple tours in Afghanistan and Iraq and all that stuff. And, you know, you can tell. You can't fake that, you know. And so for that alone, whatever it was he went through, he went through something really scary.
Yeah, and it's like you don't know, it could have been something entirely different, but like there was something traumatic that happened to him out there, and the fact that it then lands on a story that is this detailed and this unique and this like fucked up, and there's a lot of things at the same time, makes it interesting. It's not this one-dimensional kind of like, I saw an alien and it fucked me, or, you know, something like that. It's more like, you know, there's steps to it. There were different ones. He's in these different rooms. They're looking at him.
There's cover up too. There's like that part of the forest like burned down, but there were like trees that were actually cut prior that they didn't cut. There's a whole lot of shady stuff.
Does he remember when they dropped him off?
He does. He just remembers being on the ground. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There's also, I think, one other witness of the craft initially was a hunter and his wife. That hunter was also CIA.
Oh, that's nice.
So you got to wonder, right?
They're always there.
Right? It makes you wonder, like, why does that have to, you know, does that have anything to do with the story?
Yeah.
So there are all these, like, so many people are quick to dismiss Travis's story based on the idea that they wanted to get out of a logging contract or something. There are better ways to get out of a logging contract.
I could think of a few.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you don't have to be a mastermind.
Right.
It's a weird way to, you know, make money. Like, none of these guys really profited from any of it, other than Travis, perhaps, because that's what he does for a living now. Because what are you going to do? You're going to go back to logging now? Like, you know, after that, what do you do? No, of course. You write a book, you go on tour, you start talking about your story. That's what you do, you know?
Yeah, and I think sometimes with some of these people that's something that'll get thrown at them, like, oh, you gotta monetize the whole thing or whatever. And I understand where that argument comes from, especially with some people who I'll remain unnamed. But at the same time, to your point, if your entire personal world order is that disrupted in a situation like that, like you described the ontological shock or like what it means about your place here, not just now on the planet, but you see yourself in a completely different light within the universe because of something that you've had access to that clearly almost no one else gets access to. It's like you can't relate to anyone anymore.
No.
He can't sit across from Chris Ramsay and be like, yo, you understand me, bro.
No.
You know?
It's frustrating, endlessly frustrating for him.
Yeah, I can imagine.
That like people are talking with as like what ifs all the time.
Yes.
And he's just got to like sit on it and be like, yeah.
It's like if you knew, but I try to simulate that in my mind without the alien example, just like in general. If you knew like some crazy secret of the universe, whatever that is.
Yep.
And you knew you couldn't just whip out the proof of it to someone because that's kind of the whole point. But you knew it.
Yeah.
Is that enough to not drive you crazy? That you know, and who the fuck cares? You know, if other people want to call me crazy for knowing it, fine. Like, is that enough to be secure in yourself that you know?
I think, no, absolutely. I don't know. I think it even goes deeper than that with him too, in that he doesn't want to share his story. It terrifies him. He wishes to this day that he never got out of that truck. He's like, I really wish I wish my life would be different. I didn't ask for this life. He didn't want it, you know? And when he's asked to tell his story, he always says, he sticks to his story. And then he always says, you know, if this can help people, then good. If it can help people, you know, that's it.
Yeah, it still creates and I feel bad about this sometimes, but it still creates the problem that a lot of people are going to want to try to get meaning out of their life by creating a reality in their head.
Yep.
Some people are going to straight up lie. Other people are actually going to start to believe the things they tell themselves.
Yeah.
And you're going to have all that noise.
Yeah.
Right? And you have all that noise of people saying things that, well, that's bullshit, that's bullshit, that's bullshit. It becomes the pile of shit that kind of drowns out anything that could be real. Like, I always think of it this way. I fight with Andy Bustamante on here about conspiracies and stuff all the time, because he loves to give like the CIA propaganda line of like, well, never leave up to conspiracy what can be explained by stupidity. And I always say to him, I'm like, Andy, all right, let's hypothetically say that 99.9% of conspiracies that are out there that are told are bullshit, which actually, if you look at Twitter now, I'd probably agree with that.
Yeah.
But that's still a lot. That 0.1%, that's a lot of major conspiracies, and that means there is truth there. The law of averages and big numbers says, though, that because you have that 99.9 on your side, every time I bring something up, even if it's something like an Epstein, like something that's legit, you can then say, well, this is a part of the 99.9.
Yeah.
You can always, it's never a part of the 0.1.
Of course.
You know, and I think when like the alien thing, that's on a whole different level, because you will hear, I mean, I'll go into these Twitter spaces sometimes and you'll hear someone and I'm just like, well, this is complete bullshit. But then I'm like, well, when are you going to get to one that's not? And then would it all sound like bullshit anyway? Because it's something that I can't even conceive. I don't know.
Yeah. And then what do you need for it to be considered not bullshit is the other thing, right?
Right. How do I even judge that?
Yeah. So when it comes to disclosure, I think everybody's road to disclosure is different. I think it's a journey. I think it's an ontological shift that happens over time. You know, the more I'm exposed, I'm sure you as well, the more you're exposed to people who are studying the phenomenon or who have experienced things, your meter, sways up and down, but it seems to be like, okay, your conviction level grows over time, and then you start putting your own ontology against that. And then at one point, when you're given new information like this, you have to treat it one of three ways. You have to either ignore it, fit it into your worldview, like into the current model that everyone's built, the one that you've lived with, or expand your worldview. Those are the only three choices you have. And most people will ignore and fit it into their current model. Very few people will expand their worldview and let other things in, because it's scary and it's meaningless. Because I'm going to let all this in, and then what? And then go to work, and then, and plan a birthday, or like all these like weird things that, are kind of, just so meaningless in the grand scheme of things. How would I function? So I get why people would default to not believing or not wanting to expand their worldview, I should say, which is perfectly normal. But I think for a lot of people, doing it gradually is the way to go. I think that's how we get disclosure, is through conversation. It's generational. If you look at from the late 40s to now, that's a couple generations. Give it another 2-3 generations,
sure,
and this will be, a lot of it'll be common sense, hopefully, or at least the notion that we're not alone. Like let's just go get there. You know what I mean? Like the sheer size of the universe is so baffling. But then you look at cases like Travis's. If I go back to Travis for a second,
please,
and you have to wonder what in that case would help me believe, or what in that case would raise my conviction level, I should say, that it is real or that he is telling the objective truth. And, one of those things is, not only are there multiple witnesses to this, and take this however you want to take it, but all 7 of them passed their lie detector tests, police lie detector tests. That's a big deal. That's like, okay, a lie detector is not a lie detector, it's a stress detector test.
Yes.
However, that's 7 people who are not trained to sort of fool those machines. The odds are that one of them is going to fail if they're not, if they're bullshitting, right? And they're under a lot of stress. They all passed, right? So there's things like that kind of just raise my conviction level a little bit more.
Did any of them remember slight details differently of the story? Like, not the basic of like, oh, he was hit by a beam and that, so they passed on that, but were there little details that each one had that were like, oh, this guy was standing over here, so he saw that. This girl was standing over here, so she saw that?
I can't tell you, but I would assume so. I would assume there are some like varying details there, but I think the core detail is that they were all terrified of what they saw, and that is... And again, even Travis would say, and he said this, in my interview with him, he's not saying they're from Zeta Reticuli. He's not saying they're ultra terrestrial or interdimensional. He's even open to the idea that this is an American military project.
Meaning not alien at all.
Yeah, because he's like, there were like human looking things involved. So he's like, maybe it's some secret weird project. He's not excluding anything. He's not convinced that it's one thing. He has information. Here's the information.
Right.
It's up to us as researchers, to take that information, catalog it, and hold it up against the other findings, like those other cases we mentioned, which happened before and after, which are similar, right? I think those things for me raise my conviction a little bit more by a few points.
To go back to the first detail of the case, though, just so I understand this, because we talked a lot about the guy with the hair and kind of the bowl cut and the helmet, and he was tall and blue eyes and like human looking and strong. The first 4.5 foot beings that he saw when he woke up on the table, how did he describe their heads again?
They were like large heads, big eyes, but they weren't black. And so again, this is he has no idea why, but he thinks maybe because they have, and this is a good theory, he says maybe because they have big eyes, that they're extremely light sensitive, right? If you have bigger eyes, bigger pupils, that's more light coming in.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so maybe there's some type of bioengineered sunglass contact lenses that they throw over so that things aren't as bright. Like this might be extremely bright for them. Living in the darkness of space, perhaps, or the planet they're from, or whatever tube they're congened in, might be extremely dark, and they would need to protect themselves. Who knows? So, I thought that was an interesting detail. Wanting to lie, you might, I don't even know if back then there wasn't a lot of gray talk. Actually, there was a lot of tall blondes though.
Yeah.
70s is riddled with that. 75 specifically.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think like there was a time period where it was riddled with that?
I mean,
that's when they were here.
Originally, you had I think Dan Fry, 1951. I think maybe before that was George Adamski, but they both, with Orthon, and they both claimed to be contactees in contact with tall, blonde, humanoid. I think even from Venus or something. It was the sort of Space Brothers phase lasted from, I would say, the late 40s, maybe early 50s, all the way up until like the mid 70s. And it was like humanoid looking, if you look at Billy Meyer as well and Semyaze and all the contacts that he allegedly had, again, they were all tall, blonde, Pleiadian, benevolent sort of. They would have this message of like, oh, we need to come together and all this. And a lot of stories throughout the year follow that sort of being, but then it shifts to almost solely like genderless, gray, robotic, droid-like aliens, which I think maybe that's when they were like, all right, we need a system in place here.
This is where in either one of those cases, obviously they're very different in how they're described. This is where like I've really used my imagination and looked at possibilities. Some of that like Michael P. Masters, future humans thing.
Yep.
Whatever that would look like, that could make some sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me as well. I think it's a great theory. I don't know, I wouldn't hang my hat on it.
Right?
Yeah. And even Michael says like that he's open to other theories too. He's not, people get him wrong as you're the time travel guy. He's like, I don't care. He's like, that's just what I found,
I like that he comes at it from like an anthropological perspective. Like he's a literal anthropologist, college professor, whole bit. And it's like you have this potential explanation that would also explain how the human race has developed over time with help from, some sort of like time shift
Closed
going on. It's
loop.
like, it sounds nuts, but then it's like, some of that could make sense.
Yeah, and there's science to back up his claims, which is cool, which is rare in this field. But you have, the cranial morphology of these beings. If you track, our ancestors to us, to them, there's like, it kind of draws a straight line.
Yeah.
And to the size of their eyes, their arm length, all these different things, all these different features, even the jaw retracting up into the head. And so I think, that's really interesting. And then also the idea that if you were to, if we look at how we're progressing as a species. Is it sperm counts dropping 1% per year right
something.
now?
Can we check that deep? It's something like that.
It's something
crazy
insane, right? Where clearly this is a problem that is going to happen. And it's due to all sorts of factors, chemicals, microplastics, whatever you want to.
Yeah, we all got microplastics in our fucking balls.
Yeah.
You see that study?
Which doubled to over 2% per year
After
2000, the trend is subject concern for male fertility and overall health. So that's a massive decline
Yeah, we're
in
shooting
sperm
blanks
count.
out here.
Yeah. And inevitably, do the math, we're not going to be able to have any more children. That's just the way that line is drawn, right? There is an end to that. And
unless, I got to poke one hole in that.
Sure.
Unless scientific development over time, like we see how IVF has come such a long way now. It's not perfect by any means, but it's way better than it was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
We are still moving on that exponential, like Moore's Law curve of technology. And I do think there are some problems that are red alarm right now, including this, obviously, by the way, it's how we reproduce. That, like, I don't want to be too much of like the eternal optimist and say, oh, it's all going to be fine. But on some of them, I'm like, I think we're going to be good.
Yeah, and we can genetically modify all that stuff.
Yeah.
But, it begs the question, like, obviously, we don't know what effect that has in 5 generations. Like, we don't know what effect not doing it naturally has. And maybe there is some effect there, right? We have to assume that anytime we inject some chemical that's good for us or some procedure that is ground, breaking and a scientific breakthrough, 50 years later, people are growing tumors. And you know what I mean? Or stuff happens.
That would never happen with Ozempic, right? That can't happen.
I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So, it just seems like the natural process is obviously probably the best way. Nature is really good at optimizing things like that. Mm-hmm. And so if you were to make a civilization, or at least save your own civilization, you would want the greatest pool of genetic variants that you could find, right? And the most varied we ever were genetically is in the last 50 years.
What's the? I believe that. What's the scientific explanation there?
Just crossbreeding between different races, different people. Everyone was kind of like in their own little thing, and now everybody's kind of intermingling, having, and so that creates a greater genetic variance. And so if you're looking for an optimal point of genetics or DNA that you need, it would be during that period. It would be during maybe between the 50s and the 2000s, somewhere around there. So if you were a time traveler looking for, the best point in all of history to grab something, it wouldn't be now. It would have been like during this little pocket. And so maybe that's all we've been seeing is just different, maybe the same species, us, from different points in time coming back.
Well, it gets into, even when you just like look at now, like forget whether it's future humans or like how civilizations have developed, even with the genetics thing, it's an exterior physical thing. Yeah. Right? Like we all have the same organs and the same like if you rip us all apart, minus the height and whatever, it all looks about the same, right? It's literally like scientifically the same. But then the way we develop on the outside, hair, skin, geometry of features and stuff like that, you go all over the world and it's different in all different places. And some of it, might actually provide like some sort of physical advantage or something. Like there's a reason LeBron James is 6'9", 250 pounds, and like an absolute gazelle out there and can jump fucking 48 inches, right? I can't do that. Like he has some other physical makeup to do that, and yet we have the same base creation. Like I always wonder how future civilizations or, things that aren't from here would come and study that and be like, wait, they have the same software, but the hardware, it looks different in Asia than it does in fucking, Germany or something like that.
Yeah. And wasn't there, I might be mistaken on this, but wasn't there, isn't like blonde hair and red hair like completely anomalous, like in terms of like showing up? because before then it was all sort of like indigenous sort of races.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we have this sort
Shows
of like
up.
Scandinavian look showing up, which kind of matches, you know, these
where'd they
space
come
brothers,
from?
you know what I mean?
That's right.
So
Who came down here and fucked somebody?
yeah, a bit of a mystery that we have that, you know, because if you look at, okay, Scandinavian, you're like, oh, they're paler skin because they live, you know, in the winter or whatever. Okay. I'm from Canada. Our First Nations people, they're dark.
Right. Yeah.
we got Siberian type weather.
That's
and
right.
they're dark people. You know, so why are we having blonde hair, blue eyed, fair skinned people in these Scandinavian sort of?
Because you came and colonized them, Chris. God damn it.
But that's what I'm saying. It's like there is a weird, like, I think it is a little anomalous when you look at all the different races. Like we are kind of like interspecies, but we're also, you know, product obviously of our surroundings. There is some nature there to, you know, like increasing lung capacity if you're living at higher altitude or, you know, certain things like that. But there are also, I think, some like features that are just anomalous with people, like where they are, why are they like that? Where's that from?
This is one like, and it's why Michael Masters is actually a good example because of his anthropology background. It's on theme here, right? But like some of the curiosity of the potential of like life outside of here, I wish weren't so stigmatized in a lot of ways, because the science of the amazing shit that has happened here to civilization through evolution and all these different developments we've had like as a human race is so cool and still such an untapped area of study that if there is something that makes sense that's from beyond here that plays any role in that, even 1%, the combination of that expertise of like, you know, getting some expert here to look at this over here and vice versa and kind of like teaming up to figure things out could be, I mean, I Captain Obvious statement, but it's like monumental. You could reach breakthroughs that we've never even considered.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. It's wild. And then to assume it's coming from elsewhere is another thing. You know, the way that I see it is that like, what are the odds that these races are also bipedal, have, you know, 4 or 5 fingers, have front-facing eyes? You know, well, like the odds of that, I don't think are that great if you look at the vastness of the different types of like planets and solar systems. So there has to be some type of link to us. And so I would assume way before. Because if we're here and, you know, I get people's argument like, well, you're traveling all these light years to just come here, you know what I mean? And that kind of seems insane. And I would agree with that. First of all, if you're traveling in a straight line with, you know, regular propulsion, yes, it's insane. But secondly, to me, it makes way more sense that we were sort of genetically modified again. And that they're probably, I don't know, but there seems to be some type of ultra-terrestrial presence here.
Ultra-terrestrial.
Yeah, being like there's like some breakaway civilization, or there's something, whether it's deep in the mountains, behind the moon, the bottom of the ocean. There seems to be some type of monitoring system that has been here for a very long time. And, you know, we see this show up in lots of, if you read all the old, you know, Passport to Magonia or all these incredible books by Jacques Vallée, where he looks at past cases, you know, in the 1500s, 1600s, even further back than that, thousands of years ago in Japan, where like they said the stars were dancing, and then was asked, you know, how come that is, and he said, oh, the wind was really strong. And that was the answer they gave, and they were like, all right, and they kind of just moved on, right? That makes sense.
Sounds good.
Checks out. So, you know, you have all these tales of like, things have been going on for a very long time. It doesn't seem like this is an outside thing. But then again, maybe it's both. Like, why would it just be us and them?
That's what I'm talking about.
You know,
like, why can't you combine it?
Well, if it's for me, it's insane to think it's just us in the universe. Obviously, it's not just us in the universe. But if it's just us and then just them, I think that's more insane. I think it's either just us or everything, right? If it's just two. Just two of us in the whole universe?
Yes.
Like that to me sounds more insane than just being alone in the universe.
One of the Hollywood scenes that sticks in my head more than any other that was
hold on. Men in Black.
Which one?
At the end shot with the pool with the marble or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. When every time I think about
Same.
that, just like the ball and then the other ball and then the big ball and then the big balls and then fucking they're playing with it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why would that not make sense? Have you ever looked at the cells in our body?
As above, so below, man.
I mean, holy shit. It's like, Joe, can you actually pull this up? This is a good parallel. It's like in some ways like a non sequitur, but it'll make sense, I think, to you. Can you pull up
That scene.
map of Rome, of the Roman Empire veins, like the word veins coursing through you? I don't know if it'll be on Google. It was on Twitter. I wish I'd saved this. Yeah, first one. Yep, that's it.
Wow.
Like, look at the pattern of how Rome built.
Yeah.
Now think of, neither of us are doctors, but think about the human body that we know, that we've
or
seen
a
the
leaf,
picture of.
or a
Exactly.
Yeah, of course.
And like, why would that not be the same thing with some sort of pattern at the cellular level that then also explains the universe the same way that every fucking thing in the world down to Picasso's art is technically math. It's numbers.
Definitely. Yeah. I agree with that. I think to a certain level, I think, I don't think we have reality figured out at all. I tend to think that consciousness isn't a byproduct of our brain. I do think it's fundamental.
Can you explain that?
The idea that consciousness, if you look at, regular physics and regular science, tells us that our brain creates reality. So it's because of our brain that we are conscious. It's because of our brain that things exist, that we see them, right? Because of our brain, we perceive it. But, the sort of fringe parapsychological route, or the sort of fringe science, is that, and I think will be accepted as main science one day, is that consciousness is fundamental. So consciousness exists, and it's because consciousness exists that this is here. So if you take like the double slit experiment, for instance, I know it's a terrible thing to quote if you're not a physicist like myself, but it shows us that observation changes something. Mm-hmm. I think that itself is a really crazy thing to say and admit as a scientist. As a quantum physicist, you have to admit that observing something changes its state from wave to particle. It changes fundamentally what it is just by observing it.
Yeah.
Now, if I get that wrong, maybe, roast me in the comments, but I think that's like the gist of it, right? And that's all you need to really understand that, okay, what I'm observing isn't what reality is. It's different if I observe it or if I don't observe it. So I think, you can go down crazy rabbit holes with this stuff, but
I mean, you could go to the multiverse rabbit hole with that one.
You could, but all that might all just be sort of in the desktop, might not be outside the computer at all, right? I do think that if you look at quantum mechanics, it's kind of removed from space and time, right? That's kind of how it functions. Weirdly enough, like even Einstein called it spooky, this idea of quantum entanglement, that two photons, separated by an infinite distance, will instantly switched if one is charged positive, I think, and then the other one goes negative, like instantly from like a crazy, from a crazy distance. So just that alone, you're not beholden to space. Therefore, time is also. So does that mean you can also change that photon in time? Because time and space are linked. So, does that mean that everything is just happening all at once and that the only reason we perceive it otherwise is the brain?
We've also only accepted time as we know it, which is constant and moving forward, right?
That's right,
We're born and at some point we die, which means time moved from A to B, and a lot of shit maybe happens in between. But when you start to think about even the small, and I think that's all it is the small scientific understandings we even have of time now, including like time dilation. What was the name of that experiment again? Do you remember that? Where they put the watch up into space and went around the Earth, and it came back at a different
that was
time.
to prove Einstein's theory of relativity.
Yeah, I forget what that one was. I talked about it with Lawrence Krauss. back in episode 180. I can't remember what the name of it was, but it's real.
Yeah.
And then like the extrapolated kind of Hollywood example that injects a, yeah, there it is. The Hefele-Keating experiment. I just want to read this for people to have the understanding. The Hefele-Keating experiment was a test of the theory of relativity in 1971. Joseph Hefele, it might be Hafele, a physicist, and Richard E. Keating, an astronomer, took 4 cesium beam atomic clocks aboard commercial airliners. They flew twice around the world, first eastward, then westward, and compared the clocks in motion to stationary clocks at the United States Naval Observatory. When reunited, the 3 sets of clocks were found to disagree with one another, and the differences were consistent with the predictions of special and general relativity.
Yeah.
Meaning, it's exactly what it sounds like, people. And
which happened
misaligned.
after Einstein died, right?
Yes.
Which is wild.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Well,
that
why?
like
Yeah, isn't that's a while after he died too, I think,
Yeah.
right?
yeah, like his general and special relativity wasn't accepted while he was alive. I think that's
Isn't
an
that
insane
like
thing.
a tragedy?
Yeah,
You
for
know
him.
what I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, like we have his legacy now, but it's like imagine like
Yeah,
being,
people forget how fringe quantum physics was.
Yeah.
Prior to World War II, it
Yeah.
was when Niels Bohr and all these guys were and Oppenheimer were playing around with this idea. They were outcast. They were literally like, you're crazy, you're insane. The same way we're treating a lot of people looking into parapsychology. And I think there's something to be said there. I think
Can you
that,
explain parapsychology to people?
yeah, just studying studying psychic ability. There's places like the Rhine Institute, places like Stanford Research Institute, the parapsychological labs at Princeton. All these places are researching, the mind's or the consciousness's effect on the physical world and how we can interact with that. They're doing random number generator tests, which are really interesting, which is like these ones and zeros. It's basically
How does this work?
It's like a server that just goes from ones that produces a bunch of ones and zeros. And if you play it long enough, it'll just be like 50-50.
Okay.
And they're having people essentially focus on either the ones or the zeros, and they're able to skew to a higher point than standard deviation, the ones onto one side or the zeros onto another side, right? So you're affecting on a very small scale physical reality through conscious interaction.
You anchor them in a way.
Yeah, you're changing it a little bit. And so they have these machines run. There's these servers. I think you can even sign up your own computer for one of these services to be a part of these servers. But essentially, the biggest spike they've ever had was at 9/11. That was the biggest spike they've ever had, they've ever recorded, was at 9/11. They had a huge spike.
What? How do they
2001.
explain that? Yeah. How do they explain that?
So they just know that like somehow that effect, whatever happened there, I mean, you have to assume that it's probably tied to, obviously human consciousness, global consciousness, perhaps. There's this crazy study that they did too, where they had 5,000 people meditate, and the crime rate lowered significantly during those 3 weeks. If you can look that up, 5,000 people meditated for 3 weeks, and they did this twice. They did a follow up with 3,000 people in the Washington area, and crime rate dropped by like 15%, and hospitalizations dropped. Like a lot of these, they meditated on world peace.
Now they did this once.
They did it once with 5,000 and another time with 3,000.
Okay, so they
because
did
people
two
thought
different.
it was a fluke, so they did it again.
And it worked again.
Yeah, it worked again.
Whoa.
Yeah.
See, this is the problem. We call shit crazy, and maybe something is, but you can't know something's crazy unless you actually continually test the theory. That's what life is supposed to be. Why do we demonize this?
Well,
stuff?
because any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, right?
Yes.
So anytime we have something that reaches further than our comprehension of it, we think it's paranormal, right? And we give it this taboo sort of sticker of, this is magic. It's a psychological phenomenon. No, you're hallucinating. No, and we're trying to fit it into the world that we already know. And it's just until someone brave enough, smashes down those borders, whether it's Einstein or whether it's people working in parapsychology. I think you have to push boundaries, especially if you're hitting a wall, like we are with quantum physics. We have no unifying theory between the practical classical physics and the quantum realm. And so there are people who are trying to study that, but those people are every theory that comes out is, if it doesn't line up with relativity, it's kind of thrown out the window.
And it's creating these, and this is like kind of related, but it's also creating these factions within science too, where you have like the string theory people, and then the people are like, wait, what if that's not the base, and we got to get a new base? You know what I mean?
Scientism.
Yeah. I like that. I'm gonna use that.
Yeah.
Scientism.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. We're we're kind of like trying, and that stuff's been going on forever. Anytime we came up with something groundbreaking, that's what we were up against. It's no different today.
Like, I don't want to be one of those people who, the minute I hear some new crazy idea, is like, oh yeah, that's gonna work. Let's check it. I don't want to be that, but I do want to be the guy that's like, tell me more about that. How can we test this? What is the proper way to put that through some sort of whatever scientific method to determine if we can get to some level of truth that warrants more experimentation on it? And so you talk about like these, I guess, like experiments that are happening with psionics and stuff. You know, we saw one even mainstream go at least like to people last year with the whole telepathy tapes thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there were so many people who even before listening to that just shut it down. Of
course.
We're like, no fucking way. And I'm not saying these kids, these autistic kids are telepathic.
Yeah.
But like, if you actually listen to it and look at the double-blind experiments they
compelling.
did all over the world, it's compelling, and you have to at least say, even if it's not that, there's some sort of there. So let's learn.
There might be.
There might be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Even say there might be.
Yeah.
You know, like, let's learn more about that instead of just dismissing it, when in fact, like, we have it as accepted science that something like a savant exists.
Yeah.
It's accepted science.
And we don't even know how savants are made.
We don't know how it's made. Some fucking kid can come out and play Beethoven and fucking do algebra out of his ass. And it's like, oh yeah, that's normal.
Yeah,
but
we
then
just
you
say, oh, it's a savant syndrome.
Yeah, but then you say, hey, I think some nonverbal autistics might be able to communicate with each other. Blasphemy.
Yeah.
It's like, how is this the same world?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, there are ways to explain some of what was talked about or observed during the telepathy tapes. There are ways to explain that as a magician, right? And so, but just because I can explain it as a magician,
How would you explain it as a magician?
well, it depends on the example. But rest assured that it's a magician's job to do the impossible, right? So magicians are tasked with the impossible. That's what they do. That's, every magician you've ever seen on TV has consultants, and those consultants are other magicians that they work with to create the illusions that are presented on TV.
Yes.
They work together in this sort of, this sort of little group to come up with, whatever the illusion is, whatever the task is. And we are always given let's say the effect, which we call the effect, the trick. And we have to reverse engineer how to do that, right? So that's our job. Our job is to make the impossible happen. The job is, okay, we have to have this guy disappear. Okay, how do you want him to disappear? While he's walking. Broad daylight? Yes, broad daylight. What else? We want him to disappear gradually. We want it to look like he's fading out of existence. Okay, all right. So that's what we're dealing with. And now we go through the Rolodex of methods that we have, whether that's psychological methods. Are we filming this? Are we not filming this? We go through all of the stagecraft illusion that we have. We go through the misdirection, maybe suggestion. Do we use hypnosis here? Do we use camera stuff? Like, there's all these methods that are available that have been around for 600 years, as long as performative magic has been around. And we have to use that to try and create the impossible. So that being said, if you tell me, hey, can you do what they're doing? Yes. As a magician, I can fake that. That's a magician's job. It would be insulting to a magician to think you can't. Because go watch any magic show and you go, that's impossible. That's the whole point.
Would that assume that some of the double-blind scientists that they brought in and psychiatrists would have to be in on it as well?
No, but it would mean that they can be fooled, right? And I'm not saying that the people are purposely trying to fool them, but maybe there is some subtle, things at play. I don't know. I have to be skeptical when it comes to this stuff. I know that Dr. Diane Hennessy Powell is doing great work studying this stuff. I think she's doing phenomenal work, and I applaud her, and I want her to succeed in this. I think it's really important what she's doing. That being said, she's not immune to being fooled. Neither are people from Stanford. I've performed for rooms filled with 300 engineers whose whole job it is to like engineer things. And I sit here and I graduated high school. That's all I did. But I learned magic for 20 years. And I can fool the pants off the smartest guy in the room. Doesn't make me smarter than them. I just know things that they don't know. We have secrets. We have ways to do things. And so, I would always vouch for, if you're going to study anything in the parapsychological realm, get a magician to make sure the variables are met. Because we have methods that we can't share publicly that would make these tests possible, right? So I could go into a psychic competition perhaps and just like, I could train someone to go into one of these psychic competitions and win the whole thing, right? In front of doctors,
in hand in a way.
Well, there are methods. I won't go into them, but yeah, I could absolutely.
Yeah.
When you look at a guy like Oz Perlman, right, or
Yes.
any of these like mentalists, they'll be the first to tell you what they're doing isn't psychic. There's trickery. They're doing.
You see some of Perlman's stuff, and you're like, bro.
Yeah, but ask him. He'll never tell you it's an ability he was born with or anything. No, it's magic tricks.
How does he?
Well, he does it very well. I can't tell you how. That's just like the code of the magician. But as magicians, we look at other people's. We look at the performance. I look at Oz and I go, oh wow, he did a good job doing this, or he did. Oh, that was really nice subtlety he used over here when he said these things, or when he, we respect each other in that way. But when it comes to methods, like we can't share that with lay people. That's just not. Or else magic, wouldn't be around. So we have to hold that close to the heart. But when I see tests being done, let's say with blindfolds, or there's hundreds of books written on how to work with blindfolds as magicians. This goes back, to vaudeville days. It goes back even prior to that, where they would do Q&As back in 1907. This guy Alexander, he would have this act where, and this guy was the richest performer back then. He was a millionaire back in like the early 1900s. He performed for sheikhs and just royalty all the time. And his whole act, which is probably get him canceled today, but he'd wear this big turban, and he was dressed up like like some back in the day, some fakir or something, right? This is what they did. And a lot of these guys, like, it was really
Different
questionable.
jobs.
Oh, the magicians are, they'd come back from the Orient. And all of a sudden their eyes look different. Yeah. and so, they dress up and they would live whole lives. Like I think there's a list of like 30 magicians that changed their names from like, Rosenberg to like Chungling Su, and like one guy's literal name was, I think, like Ching Chong. Like that is like, I'm like, you guys are insane. Like back then, like that's, so they would come back from the Orient and bring the mysteries and like sell out of theaters here. Right. That's what they did. But this guy, Alexander, had this big turban, and essentially he was using an early precursor to Bluetooth technology. It was like coils in his giant turban, and it was like wired down through the ground, through the carpet that he was sitting on, and then would send signals to backstage. So they were able to talk to him backstage and go through like the Q&A that people would, and they'd be like, oh, blah, blah, blah.
And he could hear it.
Yeah. Same thing that Popoff was doing when he got caught by James Randi on that Late Show, right? Peter Popoff was like, he would sell out arenas of like, oh, I'll heal you. Oh, you got, power of God. And he would tell you your address, and he would like, and it's like a magic trick.
I'm going to pull the demon out of you.
Amazing Randy, he came out on live TV on a Late Show. I think it was on, what's his name? Johnny Carson. And, basically intercepted the frequency that his wife was talking to him and feeding him information, and then played it for everybody. And they were like, whoa, what? So he got his career, took a big hit. But
That'll do it.
Magicians would do this sort of ethically. We'll do it as a means of entertainment. But just to show you that back in 1907, this stuff was going on with magicians. That's how far ahead magicians are when it comes to methods. Like, people have no idea. Like there are things that magicians have access to that don't become readily available. Now it's catching up a little bit, but I've played with technology that isn't out yet due to magicians inventing it. for magic, right? So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that. So rest assured that like when you see, tests being done as a magician, I'm thinking how I would do that using those conditions, and I'll find a way using tech, using this, using that, using maybe, all these different techniques, sleight of hand, misdirection, showmanship, suggestion, all that. And so now I'm not saying that the children in the telepathy tapes are not psychic, right? That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that having magicians present, I think, is valuable to testing this stuff, because then you can know for sure. Because ask any magician, you can ask Oz Perlman, you can ask any mentalist what they think of the telepathy tapes. A lot of these guys are very skeptical because they just know too much. So it's hard for them to get over that hump. So use them. Let's use them to create variables. And
that's
then,
good. We need, you need people to push back.
Absolutely. And then have these, have these tests done under those conditions, buddy. I am the biggest champion for it, but I will be an even bigger champion for all that stuff.
I don't know, like Oz doing the mental stuff is that's one realm of being a magician. There's a lot of different realms. I don't know what the fuck his tricks are there though, dude. Like the ones that get me are when he goes to the NFL teams and it's a room of fucking 53 guys on the roster and 25 coaches, and you just see it in succession for 5 minutes. He picks out random people, and the shit that he'll get, like once in a while you'll see one, I'm like, all right, maybe he could have figured out the draft order there or something. But then you'll see other ones like what they had for breakfast that morning, and I'm thinking, how could he do it at all these different teams and never get one wrong?
Yeah, and yet we don't believe he's psychic, right?
See, I don't, but I'm also like, what the fuck is going on there, bro? Who are you?
Yeah.
You're a magician, so when you watch him, do you know?
We watch it differently, for sure. We watch it from a different perspective. Like I said, as magicians, we're kind of focused more on like patter or presentation, or, oh, that's an interesting twist you did on that, or like we'll look at like technically like how to appreciate something, which is how an artist appreciates their own art form, where everyone else will be dazzled by the colors. An artist might think of, the specific brush they use there. It's like, oh, it was an interesting choice of brush, So just kind of the same thing. Yeah.
How did you, like, what drew you to magic? And how young were you?
I was always interested. I think young boys specifically, it seems to be, are more prone to, I don't know. We're fascinated by like hidden identities as children. Every young man can attest to this. Like you want it to be a spy or a superhero or a magician or a ninja, or you want to cover your face and like you hop around in the dark and like do like these are things that we love. We love gadgets. We love So we kind of all have that within us. And I just never really grew out of it. I was always just kind of like dabbling with it constantly. And then, I started working at a bar when I was like 19 and, that's where I started using it to get tip and, bring people together, get people talking. And,
that's a great tool.
Yeah. For that. And you're doing it under low lighting, loud music, drunk people. So you can get away with a lot of stuff. It's a great play to hone the craft, really. And did that for a few years and started booking gigs after that. And so, yeah.
You were telling me that when you grew up, you were born in Germany. This was off camera. Your dad was in the Canadian military for a lot of years. I think you mentioned that on camera as well. But you went to 10 different schools or something, so you were constantly traveling and getting thrown into new environments. Do you think that part of like the interest in magic was like kind of shaped from you having to learn to entertain people around you and constantly get put in new situations?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely has a lot to do with that. I think breaking the ice was a big thing for me. Starting over again. I remember thinking to myself, and this epiphany I had when I was in like grade 8, after like really kind of being cheesed at my parents for moving again. I was like, come on, you know what I mean? Pre-internet, no way to talk to your friends, right? And so starting over, I'd went to a school previously where I was like heavily bullied for like the whole year. And then when we moved, I went to this new school and all of a sudden I was a cool kid.
Oh, that's strange.
And I didn't change anything about myself, right? And so I thought, wait, it isn't me? I'm like, what is this factor? Like, how did that happen? Right. And so it was then I realized, oh, I can decide who I am, and I can just do that. I can do that now. In fact, we can all do that right now. You can change exactly who you are if you so decide right now. You are a confident person. You are that, whatever you decide.
You think you can flip it like that?
I think everybody can. I think I think we're suppressed and think we don't have that ability. But if you want to, you can change who you are. Now, you might not see the change right away, or it might be hard, but the decision to change is immediate, right? And so you can just do that. You can be like, today I'm hyper religious, or today I speak Spanish, and just go and start there, right? You have that ability. And so it clicked within me at a young age that I was like, oh, I decide, how people see me.
But do you think part of that was you were getting dropped into new crowds, so there wasn't a previous expectation? And I'll give you like an example of this, because I see what
like
you're
a clean
saying.
slate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like when you meet someone for the first time, right? And it doesn't go right. The wires get crossed.
Yeah.
And then you see that person around in different friend groups or whatever over time.
Yeah.
Those wires have a way. Both of you are married to those wires. Like, even if you both would be best friends or get along, whatever, like the wires getting crossed once got it tangled, and you like can't get out of that pattern. So even if over, a 5-year period you're around this person and you change a lot as a person, or they change a lot as a person, and like things that were weaknesses back then are now strengths for both of you, you still have that like meeting point of like, this was where you were socially compared to me, and this is where I was socially compared to you, such that you lock it in your head that like, this is just what it is forever. So it's not, maybe you can change around new settings, but the idea of like changing in the same setting, that one's harder for me to get with.
Yeah, but it's not changing who you are immediately, but it's having the decision to change who you are immediately, right? And that's, I think, the key. So like, for instance, if you wanted to start going to the gym, right? That's a decision you have to make. You have to be like, I'm that guy.
Right.
I'm the guy who goes to the gym every day, right? And you can make that decision in the same environment that you're in now, right?
Yeah, I've done it.
Yeah, exactly. So those are major changes. That's a major change that changes who you are fundamentally as a person, that you can just do that, right? And so it's that realization that like, oh, I can just be that guy. Oh, I can be the guy that knows everything about history. Oh, I can be that guy. That can be me. Boom, done. And I'm reading books, and I'm on the internet. I'm passionate about whatever, and I'm learning about this new passion, right? You can decide whatever you want to do. It's partially, I think, the reason why I got into creating Area 52 was that I've always had this interest, and I've always been fascinated by this stuff.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, how young did that start?
Since watching Fire in the Sky when I was 9 years old. Yeah, and I remember, the disclaimer, this is based on a true story.
You're like,
and I was like, what are you telling me? Aliens are real? Parents are telling me aliens are real? And so I've always had that fascination. And then, I was doing this other channel, this magic and puzzles that I had built.
This other channel is like fucking 10 million subscribers.
Yeah, at least 7 million.
Whatever.
But
it's a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot. And it was a lot of work to get there. It was a lot of fun. And I found myself just being unhappy at what I was creating, and felt like I was just feeding the machine. Like,
really?
Yeah. I didn't feel I was going through depressions. I was like, ugh.
Why did you feel like? Because you're doing what you love. Like you're.
I started doing
what I love. Magic.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I started doing what I love. Like, I love magic. I guess what happens is after a while, have you ever read The Alchemist?
I have read that
I think
book.
everybody's read that book,
yeah.
right? It's a pretty basic book, but it's a
great.
Yeah, exactly. Great lesson in that book where, I think eventually if you're not listening to what the language of the world or whatever the signs are showing you, and you start pursuing things that are shiny, or start getting sort of, distracted by the shinier things, and stop listening to that voice.
Yes.
That voice that makes you creative, that voice that makes you passionate, that keeps you going, that puts the fire in you. If you stop listening to that, eventually it starts going away, right? And that voice brought you everything. That voice got you everything, got you to where you are, right? Got you everything. And so eventually you're surrounded by everything. You're surrounded by money, by all the things you've ever wanted, by all the success, like you've just shattered all the benchmarks that you've set for yourself. And and you start getting, you start buying things, you start doing things, you start like collecting things, and then you're not hearing that voice anymore because you're so fixated on maintaining that and trying to upkeep that. And then that voice goes away and you're just surrounded by all this stuff and you go, wait a second, why do I feel this way? Why do I not want any of this? Why do I not really care about this stuff? What am I doing this for? And that voice goes away. Right. And then you're kind of scrambling and then you're wondering, how am I depressed if I'm surrounded by all this and I have all the money and I have all the success and fame that I've ever wanted? Why am I not happy? And so I had to like listen to that thing again. Right. And so that thing was pulling me in a direction creatively that I was already sort of doing on the side. I was like, filming things more cinematically, storyboarding more, a friend of mine, we had like a tiny podcast. We like shoot the shit, like comedy podcast type deal. But I always talk about aliens. And I was like, man, I think this is kind of a calling. And as I shifted, I just noticed I went full into it this time. And you see the success come from that voice, right? From that vision, from that passion. The success will come if you're not worried about it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that's what got me into here. It's just I needed to chase something again. I needed to feel like I was starting over, maybe.
And it's actually like, it's a good story for people to hear because you started off doing the very thing that you had always loved and you built it into not just like a career, but you were famous from it. Yeah. And like from the outside looking in, people are like, wow, he gets to do what he loves and he's famous from it. But what people don't see from the outside is that, I'm talking about the magic part now before you got to Area 52. It's like all the things off camera that weren't there at the beginning grew and metastasized, based on what you're telling me, over time, to the point that the percentage of you actually doing the part that involves love and like, your pride in what you do became so small compared to everything else that it's like you can't even get joy out of it because it's a blip in your day in a lot of ways. And I understand that. And I think looking on the outside at a lot of other people in all different spaces, you can see, maybe not the moment, but you can see where over time the Rubicon gets crossed with people where they become this thing, right? And it sounds like you never became that. You had self-awareness of like, I don't like this. Like, what the fuck am I doing? But other people, they never get that self-awareness. They see all the money. They see all the fame. And like, it goes from this pure creative, no one watching it, whatever it is, like genius to, all right, I have a hard stop at 5 and make sure, you know what I mean? And it turns into this fucking corporation.
This upkeep, this machine that you got to feed. Yeah.
Yeah. And that to me is always such a tragedy to see. It's something I think about a lot because I started this in my parents' house with a backwards hat, no money and no previous fame of any kind or anything to fucking stand on. And the only difference now is I have my own place in Hoboken, right? We're over 5.5 years in and it has the same energy that it had at the beginning. And I don't even have like, we have Deef and Alessi. We don't have a team of like 30 people or something like that. So it's very bootstrap. And to me, it's like, no matter how much this grows, it's something I've always checked on myself and want to check on myself moving forward. It's like, how much are we still just purely doing this?
Yeah.
Right? This needs to, in fact, we have the conversation off camera all the time now, how to try to get rid of things that I got to do so that it can just be this pure thing right here and we can ride that. But it's easier said than done, man.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, there's everyone out there, you guys can relate to it. People that work at companies or run their own businesses or something like that. There's bullshit that comes in, and then personal life comes in as well. And you got to, there's no textbook on how to handle all this stuff.
No, I agree. Yeah. And people ask me too, like, cause you hear the term grifter a lot in this space, which is, I get it. Mm-hmm. But when aimed at me, I think it's kind of humorous because I'm like, I'm not here pretending that I'm doing this for the greater good of humanity. That's not my bag.
That's not my bag.
No, I'm doing it out of an incredible. I'm doing it completely selfishly to feed my own creativity. That's it. That's like my number one reason is to fend off living a life where I'm unhappy. And so I know for myself, and based on, you know, my childhood bouncing around a lot, I need change. I need new. I need like fresh, creative spark constantly.
You're an artist.
Yeah. And so I'm constantly trying to now make sure that whatever I'm creating, that I'm doing it out of a place that feeds my creative, selfish needs. And then secondly would be to get to the truth. Right. So first is just creativity, just fun, telling stories, hearing things, making, you know, cool shit. Then secondly is, I can answer some really cool questions and talk to some really interesting people. And then thirdly is make money to pay my bills, to pay the employees that work for me. You know what I mean? And the offset of all that is that it does help some people. Yeah. That's the side effect of that, which is why I have a hard time accepting any praise when it comes to that stuff. Like when people are like, dude, you changed my life with that video or whatever, right? I'm like, that's awesome. Not what I meant to do.
Yeah.
Right. And I got to be honest with that. Like I'd never set out for that. And I don't want to pretend that I'm like, and I'm just like, I'm so grateful. You know, like it wasn't my goal. And I'm glad that it did that for you. I think that's awesome that it did that for you. And thank you for telling me, but I could never accept that as a compliment because it's not even in my top 3 things.
Yeah.
You know, inspiring you was an offset of my own selfish creative passion. You know, it was a symptom of what I do. And that's awesome. I love that that's the symptom, but I'm going to keep it real that like I do this for me. Because I love it, you know?
Yeah, it comes across, man. I don't think you can fake curiosity.
Yeah.
Right? If you do, it's very easy for the average person's bullshit meter to go off when that happens and you're genuinely extremely curious and interested in the space you're in. I also don't think you can fake trying to hide showmanship and trying to, you know, play off what you're really trying to do, which is maybe you see a space to go to just to make dollars and cents, which to your point, we see a lot of people in a space like this, and there's a lot of spaces like this on the internet where that's exactly what they're doing. And again,
you can tell.
Exactly. Yeah. I think people's average bullshit meter on that is really, really good. But like, you know, it's also interesting that you have that like exterior lens of being a magician to evaluate a space like this when you talk to the people you do, because like it or not, there's ways, just as you described with the telepathy tapes, I don't think it's a lot different with some of the stories that you cover like on your show, to where you can kind of maybe pick out a sleight of hand moment, or like wait, no, I would have done that. You know, I would have done that like that. So you have like another layer to look at it to try to get to where that truth is. That's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, and it's important not to judge people based on that. I think, and that's become something that I've had to really look at too. Is like,
can you explain that more?
Yeah, most magicians specifically, like magic is a thing where it's you know, you can start off, you know, being told that, you know, magic is real and God is real and all this, like really, like when you're a child, and then as soon as you learn magic, you become like atheist, you become skeptical, you become like a lot of, like most magicians are extreme, at least at one point, become extremely atheist and skeptical of everything.
Really?
Yeah, because you're given a secret knowledge, right? You're told something that explains everything. Right? Whether it's psychological manipulation, whether it's like all these different illusions, you know, you can explain everything through magic. That doesn't mean that's the reason, but you can explain it. It fits everything. You know, you come to me with, you know, I saw this, I saw that. There's some niche psychological, you know, phenomenon that explains whatever happened to you, or a combination of the atmosphere at a certain time of day with the planet, or there are methods to everything, but that doesn't mean that that's the reason. And so it's been a journey for me as a magician to, you know, start off. I was raised Catholic, you know, taught all these things are real and whatnot.
Oh, you were?
Yeah, but what wasn't really practicing, just kind of like innately bought into it. Yeah. And then as I learned magic and I got deeper into magic, I suddenly became aware of all these amazing methods to things. And I just looked at religion differently now. Now I'm like, I remember going to a baptism and being like, why is that guy wearing like gold and like he's got a big hat and he's holding a scepter and they're like, they got the smoke now and they're bathing the child in the chalice. And I'm like, oh, this is all performative, weird, like psychological, reinforcement of their ideals. And I'd start thinking like a magician when I'm looking at this now. I'm just seeing a magician. I'm seeing a guy who goes home, and trolls somebody on the internet and watches his favorite show and eats Cheetos, but then he gets dressed up in this golden robe and has this scepter and says all these words. This is how I'm seeing it now. I'm seeing like a magician, right? And I start seeing all the things. And so as you do that, you start becoming skeptical, nihilist, even kind of cynical.
Yeah, I'll bet.
And most magicians stop there. That's a line. It's a straight line. It's from there to there. And at the age of 20, 22, you figured out life. And that's most magicians, sadly. And
it's kind of dangerous, though, to have even though you have a great skill, to assume you've figured out the most wildest, unfigure-outable questions by age 20. I was a fucking moron at 22. You know what I mean?
And if you want a more practical example, look at people who learn like physics or mathematics or like really, really smart people. They have a harder time of broadening their worldview because they're held so high in a position of knowledge compared to everyone else, right? If you look at Neil deGrasse Tyson, I think he's done great things to get people interested and curious, but, you're also capping what you know because you not knowing something says something about how smart you are. Right. It signals to people that, maybe he's not so smart. So he has to know everything.
Right.
And so magicians are kind of the same way in that they kind of think they know everything always. And so for me, it's been a bit of a journey to realize that it's okay to say I don't know, and I'm willing to listen and try and figure it out. But at the same time, to the original point, if I'm talking to somebody and I clearly see a few tells that there's something else under the surface or something doesn't match up or it doesn't add up, I have to be able to put that aside. And
you have to put that aside.
Yeah, because I don't want to I'm aware that people make mistakes, people lie, people do, but that doesn't explain what happened, right? And just like a magic trick, just because I can give you a method for something, that doesn't mean that that's what's at play here. And that's the real thing that's really hard for a lot of magicians, a lot of people who know a lot of things to get over. Just because you have an explanation for something, that doesn't mean that's the explanation, right? There could be something you're not thinking of.
What you are talking about right now is actually identifying the most commonly understood problem in society at large these days, which is that people, a subset of people, and they tend to be the loudest people who get the most attention, especially online, have convinced themselves and the world that everything needs to be 0 or 100. Mm-hmm. And what you are talking about is the nuance of things. Yeah. Which means not everything's right, not everything is right, not everything's wrong. There is no right or wrong. There's no right or wrong.
There is none, yeah. So how do you know what's right or wrong in 100 years from now, whatever decision you made, if you look at like Hermeticism is really interesting, I think, because you go like the 7 laws, the 7 Hermetic principles, and one of them is there are no opposites. There are just varying degrees of the same thing. And that I think is really interesting. Like if you look at like heat and cold, like we see this binary sort of heat and cold thing, but it's just something vibrating faster or slower. It's the same thing. It's just vibrating at different rates, right? So there is no difference. It's just a varying degree of the same thing. And so I think there's a lot. I think we have to treat most things that way. Is like look at things.
Most things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. I think obviously I think there are maybe things that are objective to us, to our ability to perceive things. But I also think that, there are things that just we have to understand. Like we're smart enough to understand that we don't know everything. Why do we act like we do? It's like we should be able to suspend anything in favor of just data entry.
Yes. I'm with that. Because like, if you take those things to extremes, if I walked outside right now and some guy I've never met before who has no idea who I am walks up to me and blows my brains out, like, obviously, I would say that's wrong, right? On a right-wrong scale. But you don't want to throw, to your point, you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater here and then start to apply that black or white scenario to fucking everything you listen to, especially when, you know, with the things we're talking about today, you may be dealing with things that are completely unknown to the scientific universe or that have elements that could explain something that's previously been unexplainable, but not all of it can explain it. You know what I mean? You have to leave that room for interpretation open.
Yeah.
It sounds like that's what you've gotten pretty good at doing with the content you cover now, because you have to.
You have to. Yeah. You ever hear that like Taoist sort of story about the guy that, you know, the farmer whose kid breaks his leg?
No.
So like, you know, he's a farmer and he loses his horse, right? And then the neighbor comes, he goes, "Oh, that's bad," you know, and he goes, "There's no good, there's no, you know." And he's like, "Oh, okay." And then enters like a draft and whatever, and like wins a horse, right? Enters like a raffle and wins a horse, and the neighbor comes, "Hey, that's good." And he's like, "Oh, it's no good or bad, really, it's whatever, you know." And then the son, you know, hops up on the horse now that he has a horse, and he falls off and he breaks his leg, and he goes, "Oh, it's bad." You know, and the guy goes, "No, it's not really. Like, I mean, there's no good or bad." And then, you know, the war comes along, and now they're doing conscription, but he's got a broken leg, so he can't be conscripted into the war. And so he's, "Oh, that's good." And he goes, "I don't really. How do you know what's good or bad, right?" So it's this idea that like we say labels of good and bad and everything's like, but it's just varying. We don't know. We don't know enough to know if something's good or bad. We don't know what effect that has on anything. So it's really a subjective opinion, you know, on whether something is good or bad. It's based on, so there's no real measuring of anything. It's all about feelings, right? And so it's better to just act as though it's all just data. It's all just interesting. It's all just really interesting stuff. And you can package it any way you want it, as a joke, as a entertaining story, or as like a horrific incident or whatever. And I'll just take it all the same and process it, you know, that way, and just see what comes out of it, see what kind of connections we can find, or, you know. But if you, like, there's so many people, I'm sure you're thinking of these people too, where you go, they're like, "Oh, what are you working on?" And you go, "But," and no matter what you say, they go, "Oh, right. Nah, that's not for me." Right. Like that. I'm sorry. Like that. I do, like, please stop me if I'm ever that person. Like anything at all. I never want to be that person that completely dismisses something upon hearing a soundbite. You know, I'm like, that's a detriment to humanity, to everything, man. Like, we have to learn to just shut up and listen for a second, you know, and just, who cares? Just because you listen to something doesn't mean you have to believe it. Doesn't mean you have to not believe it.
That's right. You can have your own opinion about it. I think to do the job you and I do, and obviously like you're more in one topic, I do a lot of different things, but what we have in common is we got to sit down with people and talk to them for a long time and try to understand where they're coming from. Like, you're going to walk away from some and be like, "Yeah, I don't really agree with any of that," but you have to hear it out. You have to actually get that data to understand that and be able to make an educated personal decision on it. And you know, this is the other thing that's kind of the problem with our world. It just because you think it, and I'm not saying there's something wrong with opinions, but just because you think it doesn't mean you need to fucking tell everyone about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's a time to do it and there's a time to not. Your guess sometimes is as good as mine, but you know, we kind of live in this world where people, the instant they think something, right? And that's not healthy to me. Like 99.9% of the tweets I write don't get sent.
Yeah.
There's a very good reason for that. You know, I have a very small Twitter following because of it. But I'm cool with that.
Yeah, it's okay.
Because I see what happens to people when they reinforce, you know, this need to have to give their opinion on things over and over again. They become someone else. I've seen it happen I've been on Twitter since 2010, I think. I've seen it happen forever. And like there's something about that type of technology that like our consciousness, to bring it back to that, has not fully integrated with yet and understood what that does to our worldview. Like people talk about it, including some people who are stuck in these loops, and then they don't even realize they're stuck in the loop.
It's crazy.
And I'm like, ooh, I wouldn't want to be there.
Yeah.
But you're always stepping out like, all right, I'm not there on anything, am I? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you got that like paranoia. Like, am I stuck in this loop with this thing because of, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it usually has to do that specifically with people. It's never events or ideas, right? It's always people. So That's always been my sort of, or at least recently has been my threshold of like what not to engage with. And if it's about a person, I don't engage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's drama,
it's
gossip.
Whatever it is. It's just not worthy of discussion, I think. I think it's not worth it. But if it's events, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And now if it's ideas, oh, here we go. Let's talk about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we can play with that.
Yeah, ideas are fun to talk about.
You were talking about religion, though, a few minutes ago, and like you grew up Catholic, and then when you started to get some of the magic skills and you would see the things that just like sleight of hand, almost like, you're like, what the fuck is that? You know, you lose that. But like, what? Let's just start here. Where do you believe it all comes from? Do you believe there's like a God or something?
I don't know. I think I'm a little agnostic when it comes to that stuff, but I do. You know, I've had some experiences myself, which for my own ontology, kind of help fill in some possible gaps. But
what kind of experiences?
Like I made a whole docu-series on leaving the body, like an astral project, like out of the body experiences. And this is something, again, that I would not be comfortable talking about if it hadn't happened to me, right? It's not, I'd be kind of embarrassed to talk about if it wasn't true. Like, I mean, I'm kind of embarrassed to talk about it as a magician, right? Because I know the inherent skepticism that people have, and rightfully so. But I did this, it's like with anything, I just wanted kind of like, I want to study things myself. I don't want to hear somebody's opinion and then base my whole view of reality on that. Like, that's insane.
Yeah.
To me, that's insane. To me, it's insane when you listen to a smart person and go, that's me now.
Every single thing. Yep.
Like,
I think that's crazy.
Newest, smartest guy said the newest smart thing. That's me.
Yep.
That's insane. That's insanity to me. I think it's more sane to like just make up your own reality than to like listen to the newest, best thing all the time. But that being said, I had a friend of mine, Nelson Dellis. He's a U.S. memory champion, 6-time memory champion, amazing dude. And I had hit him up because I'd wanted to learn like how to make like mind palaces and stuff and like memory stuff to like memorize decks of cards to help me with magic. And so he taught me. We became friends, started doing the memory stuff. And then one day he goes, he's like, "You've ever heard of remote viewing?" And I go, "Yeah, I think so." I was like, back in the day, it was like a psychic spy thing and men who stare at goats type deal. And he goes, he's like, "Yeah." He's like, I was recruited to learn remote viewing to play the stock market for some hedge fund. And I go,
to learn remote viewing.
Yeah. I go, what? He's like, yeah, I was like on a Facebook group. They hit me up and they're like, anybody want to make money? And he's like, sure, I'm down for like whatever. And for an hour a day for a month, he was taught how to do CRV, controlled remote viewing, by this agency that was hired by this hedge fund. And they wanted to train a memory person specifically because they thought he has a really good visual memory. Maybe he's a better remote viewer. And so he'd remote view the stock market, Bitcoin, basically for them. And it's called associative remote viewing, which is like you're remote viewing a target, and then you're given, there's 2 targets, and whatever target you're closer to has like an up or a down, let's say, behind it.
Yeah.
And then that'll determine what the stock, do we go up? Do we go down here?
That's simple.
Basically, essentially is the idea. And they were very successful with it, and that's where I was like, hold on a second. We're putting money behind psychic ability now. I'm like, that now I'm interested because that's an objective, way to measure whether or not the psychic stuff is real is let's put money on it.
Yeah.
And so I started looking down, and this is actually what started the Area 52 channel was I started documenting this. I was like, can you teach me? So I spent a year doing it with him. Like every day I'd remote view, I'd have sessions. I documented this whole thing.
Take me in there. What would happen?
So basically he would have a target, which is a photo that he would keep secret, and he would attach like a 6-digit number to that target. And it has nothing to do. There's nothing you can deem from that number that would give you any clue of what the target is. It's just a random series. But on a quantum level, I don't even know, there would be some type of entanglement between this number now and this target. They would be linked. And so you would get this number. You write that number down, and now you'd start your controlled remote viewing. Now you'd go down describing the dimensions, the sound, the texture, the feel, the size, the temperature of it. And then you would draw things. Then you would have this whole thing, and you would do this. And after you're done, you would open the envelope and compare to see if you got close. So it's fun to do, and sometimes it was just terrible. You're like, oh, there's no way. This is stupid. But you feel stupid every time, by the way. Like, as you're doing it, you're like, oh, this is stupid. Like, as you're doing it, you're like, yes, I feel it, right? And right as you're about to open the envelope, you're like, what? This is obviously not going to match. What am I doing? And but sometimes it matched so closely.
See,
We're
so
like
you were torturing some prisoners in Guantanamo from your mind.
We'll get into that.
Yeah.
Not discussing people. So anyways, I would have these matches were like undeniable. You know, it could be anything. I could be remote viewing a bumblebee, right, or a bicycle next to a abandoned building.
Would you know where it was?
No, nothing. You get nothing. It couldn't.
No, I know, but like when you're matching it, is that a bumblebee that's floating in fucking New York City? Or?
No idea.
No,
you just get a picture,
okay.
right? So, and then you'd base your stuff on that. And sometimes it was like, oh, I'm getting like sulfuric, hot, flowing, red rock, red cliff, dusty, and there's some flowing here. There's heat, and then it was a volcano, right? So you're like, oh, well, that couldn't have really been anything else, and everything that I wrote down matched the target. So I was like, damn, that's pretty cool. So I went down that rabbit hole. Ended up speaking and spending time with Joe McMoneagle, who is remote viewer 001 for Stargate.
Yeah, I saw you did an episode with him.
Yeah, spent time with him. Spent time with Dr. Edwin May, who is the chief research physicist at SRI, Stanford Research Institute. Mm-hmm. So they were the guys who were contracted by the government to study this stuff.
What do you think of McMoneagle? And can you tell people his full background?
He was known as Remote Viewer 001, mm-hmm. Which is the first accepted remote viewer that they hired in the psychic spy program in the 70s during Project Stargate.
CIA.
Yeah, CIA. It was DIA. It was different departments of the DoD used them, so it wasn't just CIA. And prior to that, there was Project Sunstreak. They had Grill Flame, Center Lane. These were all psychic projects that were prior to Stargate. Stargate was just one of them. And basically what they did is they had this guy, Ingo Swann, who is a natural psychic, in air quotes, come up. He was a really good, gifted remote viewer, okay? Objectively really accurate, a lot of remote viewing stuff. So they said, okay, can you develop a system that we can teach soldiers to do this for intelligence collection? So CIA and all these different departments in intelligence, they rely heavily on signals intelligence or, mm-hmm. Whether that's like signals or satellite or human intelligence or all these different things. This would just be another sort of quote unquote constellation.
Got it.
For them to bring in information. And so they're like, and they heard the Russians were doing it. So they were like,
you always got to copy the Russians.
We might as well try.
Yeah,
and if it's costing a piece of paper and a pencil, why not? And so they had this done. They had this little system down. They tested 600 people. Out of these 600 people, there were mental level geniuses. There were Stanford alumni, intelligence people, Army people, civilians, natural psychics. And out of these 600, only 6 of them, so 1%, showed significant talent. And that one of those was Joe McMoneagle. And so he had 5 first place matches out of 6 during his tests, which is unheard of. So essentially, a fourth place match is if the target is a bumblebee, and I draw and describe this coaster. Mm-hmm. Okay, fourth place match.
Yeah, nowhere near it.
Not great. A third place match might be if this coaster was fuzzy and black and yellow, but still a coaster. Now you're like, oh, a third place match. That's kind of cool. A second place match might be if I drew a wasp, right, or a hornet. And a first place match is if you drew a bumblebee and described a bumblebee and could lay the photo over. He got 5 first place matches out of 6.
That's pretty crazy.
It's insane. And when you look at some of the tests that he did and the results, and he was also an artist, So he's very accurate with his drawings. They weren't subjective. They weren't these nebulous, blobs of like, oh, I guess that could be a kind of like a kettle or something. No, they were like artist renditions. They were amazing. And so they used him for years, for 20 years that we know of, right? During these programs. He was used to find a general that was kidnapped, General Dozier in Italy. He was kidnapped by some like rebel force, and he found where he was, how many guards were there, and it was thanks to him that they actually found this American general, and they saved him.
And there's documents.
Yeah, there's
that,
documents. This is all
say like that's what's crazy. It's like you hear this, and my first thought is, come on, and then like
they found a tracker in the pocket calculator hidden on a spy. Because of him, they found downed aircraft. They found things in the ocean, like recovered aircraft in the ocean, thanks to him.
Aircraft?
Yeah, like jets. Okay. Yeah.
We got to, in a podcast like this, we got to ask.
Yeah, they used him for like UFO stuff too.
Yeah.
He told me a story about that. But he doesn't like those targets very much because...
Not an alien guy.
No, he just doesn't like it because they're unverifiable. So like, okay, I can describe a UFO or whatever, but he's like, there's no way to verify that the target was that, right? So it's like, it's just up in the air. Was it accurate? Was it not accurate? We don't know. But they used him to find a lot of nuclear bases too, like places where they had like nuclear missiles. And they were very accurate with that stuff. In fact, so here's a crazy stat. In the 20 years that Stargate was around, there was 19 intelligence agencies. 17 out of the 19 agencies came back to Stargate for new missions. Right? So if you're running a restaurant and 19 people show up, and then the second day, 17 of those 19 show up. It's pretty good food.
That's pretty good food.
Yeah. 505 individual missions over 20 years between the 17 out of the 19 agencies.
In a program that they, big air quotes here, allegedly shut down at the end.
Yeah, and that they said didn't work.
Right.
Well, the Joint Task Force came back 142 times. Just the Joint Task Force. 142 times. And Joe and Dr. Edwin May, they both said that the Joint Task Force, what they would do is they would intercept a lot of drug smuggling coming in on boats using remote viewing. That's why they came back 142 times.
I feel like Eric Prince is using some of this right now to blow up some fucking Haitian drug lords.
I mean, if it worked that well, why wouldn't you use it? Right? And again, the thing that people need to understand about remote viewing, because I know a lot of people are rolling their eyes right now and they're like, how can you perceive something, at a distance or away from space and time non-locally? How is that accurate? Well, the way intelligence works is that they will never use a single source of intelligence to track something down or to strike they will always use multiple points, right? So they'll use a satellite photo, they'll use people on the ground, an agent there, they'll use radar signals, detecting the radar moved over here, and they have this type of radar, which means they probably have missiles there. Like they have all these other things. This was just another thing. So sometimes they would have boom, boom, boom. We think the hostages are here because we have this. They wouldn't tell this to the remote viewers because these are all top secret missions. The remote viewers wouldn't know 95% of the targets. They would never even know afterwards because they were classified targets. So the agency, whether it's the CIA or the FBI or the Joint Task Force, they would simply give the target to the Stargate taskers, or not even the taskers, just some people at Stargate. The taskers would then hold on to it. They would give the number, or the person would hold on to it. They would give the number to the tasker. So the tasker doesn't know what the target is. And the tasker would then do the session with the remote viewer. So it's double blind. Even the tasker doesn't know. And so they do their session. They then take that session, give it back to the Joint Task Force, and never see it again. And the Joint Task Force came back 142 times doing that. So you have to assume that something worked, right? So they're getting perhaps, if they're looking for a nuclear base, and then they're getting like some drawing of like a nuclear silo in a building that looks the same as their signals intelligence is telling them, as their satellite imagery, then they have to go, okay, maybe there is something here.
Yes.
Now, they had to do this for an oversight committee year after year to prove to them that remote viewing was real so that they'd renew the budget. So Joe McMoneagle went into skiffs doing remote viewing sessions. And they would be like, all right, approved, here you go. Good to renew for another year. And it wasn't until somebody, because I think one of the MK Ultra programs killed themselves on LSD, that like it blew up.
Oh, that's nice.
And people found out about Stargate and then said, what are you guys doing over there? And General Stubblebine and all that. So they publicly shut it down and said, this stuff never worked. And it was all horse shit.
They just changed the name.
Of course.
Flipped around the files.
Obviously.
Said, don't worry about that whole Charles Manson thing.
Obviously.
Don't worry about it.
So yeah, needless to say, Joe McMoneagle is like the LeBron James of remote viewing.
He looks a little different, but yeah.
Yeah. He is though. And what they found out, here's what's interesting, and I'll get to the out of body stuff in a second, but
Take your time, bro. We got all day.
what they found was interesting. And this is something that not a lot of people talk about, but Dr. May, the 6 people, the 1% that had undeniable talent in remote viewing, they found them to also have synesthesia.
Oh, where they had, whoa.
Yeah, so they could perceive colors and sounds.
by
And,
sounds, yep.
yeah, all sorts of different. The brain's wired differently, but all 6 of them. So now they have something to look for. All 6 of them had that, and they were doing all sorts of wild tests with remote viewing.
That's also, so that's just, so I understand correctly, that's just like an added nice component, because I don't have a percentage for you or anything, especially off the top of my head. I don't know, but there's people that I have aspects of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's, and I talk to people who have that, right?
Yep.
So you're saying this is just like another correlation, possibly equaling causation.
Yeah, it's
type element.
Absolutely. It seems like everybody has some latent sort of talent for remote viewing, but there are people like LeBron James who are just better at basketball.
Yeah.
I can shoot hoops.
Mm-hmm.
Won't make it to the NBA.
Yeah, not like him.
Same deal with remote viewing. I think what we're seeing is that people who do have synesthesia seem to have some existing aptitude.
And there's also
these children from the telepathy tapes also, a lot of them have synesthesia. So that's where it starts to get interesting.
Yes. But this is also where it gets way above my pay grade, because it can also have to do with, I'll just call it very high level here so the doctors don't get mad at me, but certain functionality within the brain.
Yeah.
That's like literally biologically different, or
Yep.
they have something extra. And this was one place, like I've had Lou in here twice. When he was in here for episode 237 the first time, we only talked about the remote viewing in like the last 8 minutes of that episode. It was like a 3-hour, 20-minute episode.
Yeah.
So it's like we didn't get to do like the full gamut. But like when you read his book and then hear him talk about it, that was one place where even off camera I was like, you're making this sound way simpler than it is. Like the way he seemed to describe it, I don't know if this was like his intention. Then he was saying like, well, it was kind of my intention, so you be the judge of that. But it was almost like, yeah, anyone can do it.
Yeah.
You just fucking go in a room and do it. And like then I hear you talking to your friend and being like, oh, this is something interesting to learn. And you go in and do it. And I started to think, maybe. But then the bullshit meter in me goes, no.
Mm-hmm.
But then like you can actually test it. Like, did you actually draw what's in an envelope? And then if you did, it's like, well, shit, there's got to be something there.
That's right. Yeah, there's something.
But you're also a magician.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I know that like there is there's a big bias. There's absolute bias that you have to get out of the way when you're looking at a session and you're looking at the target. If you're evaluating your own session, you have to get that confirmation bias.
For sure.
So I would score I think my highest score that I ever scored myself was like a 6 on 10. And that's when like I matched up like with like pretty good, I gave myself a 6 on 10 because I'm like, I understand confirmation bias, but I've seen results. Nelson, one of his first ones, and that's usually the way it goes. Like at first you have like the best sessions you've ever had, and then it drops down to like you're so far, and then you kind of come back. It has something to do with like expectation, ego, or whatnot. But he drew like a literal whale breaching out of the water, and that's what the target was. He described it like blubber, falling, gelatinous, life form breaching water, and he drew fins on it, and it was literally that. And you're like, what are the odds of that? That's pretty insane. So when you see,
That's crazy.
Yeah, when you see things like that, you go, and then you see the next session, it's completely wrong, and then you're like, oh, or it's like at least, okay, I kind of see how you can fit that. But when you see ones that are like really strong, you go, man, really there seems to be something there. So yeah, they did all sorts of tests. They tested whether or not this was a frequency.
A frequency.
Because a lot of people think it's like a radio
like
that
tapping
you
in.
tune in
Yeah,
to like something.
yeah.
So they went in a submarine like 600 feet underwater, did remote viewing tests, worked almost even better because of the isolation, because they were just like so focused down there. So we know it's not a frequency.
They didn't take him in that fucking Titanic sub, did they?
Maybe that's what they were doing down there. And then they tested something really interesting, and this is a working theory I think that Dr. May is working on right now. Entropy has a lot to do with determining like the accuracy of a target. So if there is a higher rate of entropy at a target, they will get better results, more accurate results. And that speaks to the brain's or the mind's or the consciousness's ability to detect change. Like we are hardwired to detect change. That's what we do. Like for instance, do you know the Gansfeld experiment?
Remind me.
You'd put headphones on and play a frequency, and then cut ping pong balls in half, put them on your eyeballs and shine red light. And after about 10, 15 minutes, you wouldn't see red anymore. You'd see black, and you wouldn't hear the frequency anymore. You'd grow accustomed. It's like being in a house that stinks.
Yes.
You don't know until you walk in.
That's right.
So same type of thing. Our brains are hardwired to detect change. And when there's no change, it's kind of invisible.
Right. It adapts quickly
Exactly.
once it does. Yeah.
So a rock would be much harder to remote view than a nuclear installation. Because a nuclear installation in this quantum realm has entropy, is creating it's so what they would do is they would actually go to these target sites, and this is so interesting. They would pour liquid nitrogen at the target sites, and that would yield more accurate results for the remote viewing session, which is kind of nuts. So you're like, oh wait, there's an actual, and so that's why these nuclear sites were actually easier for the remote viewers to find, or these missile silos, or missing children, or people that were being threatened like in a hostage situation. That was way easier to remote view than the lottery, right? So it's almost on a survival basis that we have this, and that's what Joe really believes, is that these abilities, we used to have them a lot more. Like the most powerful people in the villages weren't the strongest; they were the most psychic, right? Those were the most revered. We'd go to them and ask them for guidance, and they would tell us, water is over there, or don't go there at night, predators will get you. And that helped us survive to some extent, maybe. And so that's kind of, their research is kind of based on that. Like these are instinctive abilities that we just don't really need anymore. And maybe that's why, but we still have them. Like if somebody pulls a gun on you, right? You kind of have like, you can see ahead, or you can like know what they're thinking for a split second. Even GSP, the fighter, I had him on the podcast. George St. Pierre.
You've been hanging out with him.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it was super cool. And he says that too. He's like, during fights, he's like, I don't know if it's precognitive or if it's deductive. I don't know if when somebody's throwing a punch at me, sometimes when all the adrenaline's there and like high stress levels, he knows what the opponent's going to do, and he can just move out of the way and like it's nothing. And he goes, I don't know if that's deductive from training, because of all the thousands of hours, or if he gets into this type of flow state and he's precognitively, like maybe microseconds, has this like reaction because he knows what's going to happen. So it's an interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
I would actually, on that one, as a total outsider looking in at that, I would lean towards more it's probably deductive, because those guys, think about like the 10,000 hours
it's mastery
theory. Yeah, he's put on probably 30,000 hours of this in his whole, you know what I mean? Like and when you're fighting, even when you're just training and rolling around and stuff, like those guys go at it, bro. You're going at it when you're a kid doing that, and you're constant, like there's a form of simulated survival mode every time you do that.
Yeah.
And I think it's actually like hearkening back to some of our, like when you really look at like the brilliant jujitsu guys and stuff like that, MMA guys, like it harkens back to some of our basic evolutionary wirings that we have. Like they like rebirth it in the modern era. And again, like they've been training this stuff since they were kids. But
Absolutely.
I don't want to say it's not possible.
Yeah.
That there could be something predictive there, like where you can feel it. I mean, a good example might even be, remember when Ali dodged like 37 punches in a row or whatever?
Yeah.
You're watching that, and yes, that is like a lifetime of training, but there is also something there where like he knew when the hand was here that it was going to end at this point. And when that hand was here, it was going to end at this point. And he knew that 37 times in a row.
Sometimes you just know too, like
whatever it was. I don't know how many. It was a lot of times.
Yeah, it's a crazy clip.
Yeah.
You know, I had to talk about this. I was doing a lot of research into this, but mixed mediumship is something that happens.
Mixed mediumship?
Yeah, as a term coined by Eric Wargo. He has a book called Time Loops, and it's really interesting. But the idea is that magicians, we encounter sometimes what seems to be real magic, and not magicians are reluctant to talk about it in that way because they'll chalk it up to coincidence. But I've looked into it quite a bit. What's interesting is you'll be in a type of flow state, in a type of like, I can't say anything wrong. Everything I do is right. It's just bop, bop, bop. As a magician, you're performing and like nothing can go wrong. Everything's going my way. Everybody's kind of like just believes that you can do it. And there's this energy. And then you start trying just stupid, risky shit as a magician. You will. And you can have Oz on here. And he's a big skeptic. He'll tell you, yeah, that happens. And, what he'll also tell you, and what most magicians will also tell you, is that those risks, they pay off more than they should. They pay off compared to the times that they shouldn't pay off. They pay off way more.
Why?
So that's the question. Is it precognitive? Is it retrocausal? Is it some field that we're tapping into? And what is it? What is that? But it does happen a lot. So what I did is I reached out to my group of magicians that I know. So like I had like 200 magicians write to me and tell me a miracle that happened to them while performing. Some, fun, miracle that...
A miracle.
Yeah, like a miracle. Because as a magician, we don't let the audience know when something goes our way that wasn't supposed to happen.
Sure.
We'll just go, ta-da, right? Because we're the magician, right? It's supposed to be amazing. That's what magic looks like.
That was my plan.
Exactly. Yeah. And every magician does this.
Yeah.
Every magician. And so I had them write, and I have all these amazing stories. And I on the magic channel that I have, I put out a documentary recently. I went to Spain. Jesse Michaels was there with me, and he got to witness some of this stuff. And, they told me all sorts of stories that are just the most, like, there's no explanation for that. And we don't tell anybody about it except other magicians. We'll never tell a layperson, oh my God, that wasn't supposed to happen. Yeah, we'll tell each other, we'll go, dude, you believe this shit? What happened yesterday, dude? I'm telling you. Like, example, I was in Bermuda with some pals. We're doing magic at a bar, just hanging out. Like this group comes over and they're like, oh, you guys are magicians. Show us a trick. I was like, yeah, sure. I was like, do you have your phone? She goes, yeah. So I was like, put your phone on the bar. At this point, I have her passcode. I won't tell you how I have her passcode, but rest assured, I have her passcode. She doesn't know I have her passcode.
How the fuck do you get her passcode?
Well, there's
you sick fuck.
There are many ways to get a passcode, but I have her passcode. So now, as a magician, I'm looking like, all right, how do I reveal this? Right? That's where magic comes in. It's not just I just don't go boop 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 boop. That's impressive, but I'm a magician. I want to play this up. I want to try to like play with things that are happening around. Try to like make it a little more magical. Right? That's the reveal. So I had this information and I'm thinking to myself, all right, how do I do this? I can look at a receipt maybe, or look at like, try to find the numbers matching somewhere. I know it's a personal number, probably a birthday of some type because it's 1012. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, it's probably like 10th of December, 12th of October. And, you know, like, and women usually go for like a personal number. And a lot of times that's a date. Guys, we usually do patterns like 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, or same number type deal, right? Or like we'll do the cross or like corners or like we'll do some pattern, but not always, but sometimes. But I have the number. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, it's probably this. So I go, I want to spice it up a bit. And I go, I'm not going to open your phone. He is. And I point to the bartender. I was like, come over here. And now I'm thinking to myself, whatever. I have enough in my repertoire to where if this doesn't work, I'll figure something out. I don't know what I'm going to do if it doesn't work, but I'll figure it out. I know that, right? So I'm very confident. I call it a misplaced confidence, like stupid confidence. I have no business being this confident about what's about to happen. And I go, go ahead and put in 4 numbers, random 4 numbers. He puts in 4 numbers, doesn't open. Everybody's like, everybody kind of, there's like a,
he ain't got it.
Yeah,
he ain't got it.
Stress moment that kind of like everybody kind of like, oh my God, that would have been sick, right? And I say, yeah, that would have been a miracle. But I say, you know, one day that might work. And then I say, I think the number is more personal though, if I'm not mistaken. Now I'm doing some warm reading because I already have some information. She's like, oh, it is, you know.
But you already knew the code.
I already knew the code. And I know it's a personal number because it's 1012, and it's like that feels like a date, right? So I'm like, I think it's a personal number. And I go, let's try this. Why don't you put in your passcode? Just again, if it doesn't work, whatever, we'll figure it out. He puts in his passcode, phone opens. Now, my magician friends are looking at me like, what trick is this? Right? Because they're confused.
So it's an act.
Because they know what trick I'm doing, and they know, you know, and then they go, well, hold on. So I go, I take it a step further. They're freaking out. And I go, I think you guys have the same birthday. What day were you born? And he goes, 12th of October, 12th of October. And they both start freaking out as if I made that happen. Right? So what are the odds? I calculated like 1 in 100
and
million.
You keep a poker face when you're doing this? You weren't like, what
dude, are you kidding me? This is the trick of a lifetime, dude. I hope they never see another magic trick in their life.
I hope they're not watching this.
Yeah. Still magical, right? Still synchronous, still beautiful. So, you know, something like, and here's the funny thing. I was in Spain with Jesse, and I was telling this because I was talking about mixed mediumship. Here's where it gets meta and weird, and how
it's
everything's
already meta and weird, Chris. Fuck, man.
I'm sitting at a table with a magician friend of mine, Juan Coras. He's an amazing Spanish magician, and I'm talking about mixed mediumship because I'm about to make this video, which he's featured in, and I'm asking him about a miracle that he's performed at, and you know, so I explained to him this story, the same one I just told you. This is a few weeks ago. I'm not even lying. He goes like this. His phone's on the table, and he goes, open my phone. And I go, what do you mean? And he goes, open my phone. And I go, no fucking way. 1012, his phone opens. Dude, I'm telling you. And I know you're thinking he's a magician, maybe change his passcode. He's not that type of magician. He's not a passcode magician guy. He doesn't give it. He's like a hippie. He's got dreads, and he's all like he does contact juggling and stuff. He's like a dope dude. His phone was there, and he goes, and I swear, and I'm like, dude, this is exactly what I'm talking about. I'm like, this is what I'm talking about. And so it's this mixed mediumship, this weird coincidence that happens. And I had a friend of mine who is a comic, and he does like crowd work. And he goes, dude, I know what you're talking about. Because like during crowd work, sometimes I'll just guess people's jobs. And I'll be like, oh, and because he's in the moment, and he's just kind of like, as a joke, he'll be like, bam, and and then, you know, coincidences will start happening, and it's this weird thing. So I don't know what that is, but I think there's something maybe there. Maybe we're collapsing waves intentionally through this flow state. Who knows?
What's my passcode?
I don't know. No idea. 6 digits though, right?
No.
4?
I do the old school 4.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe we'll do it later.
How would you figure that out?
I'm not Oz Perlman.
What the fuck? Like that Oz shit. What did he do with Joe Rogan? He figured out like his bank account fucking number, and then he figured out another number or something with it, like the backup or something. It gets weird, bro.
I was gonna ask, have you looked into like with the mixed mediumship, like anything with like a overlap with psychedelics about that? Because that's something like in my personal experiences, I've noticed a lot too. Like when you're like in the midst of these experiences, there's way too many
synchronicities.
Yes, way too many happen.
I feel the same way. When I'm on shrooms, I'll like, dude, I'll be on shrooms.
Oh God,
dude, no, I'll like be in line at a concert, and then I'll like turn and I'll see like someone I haven't seen in 20 years, and he'll also be on shrooms. And then we're like, oh my God, what's happening? And I'll have like the best night. Like things like that happen a lot on psilocybin for some reason.
Did you bring some equipment to fuck with me here, by the way? You gonna do that?
Yeah, we could try something.
Yeah, let's. I mean, you got my intrigue up right now. I don't know how you motherfuckers are getting passcodes. That's where it gets weird. I got to give you the Israeli spy phone out there. You got to see if you can talk to Tel Aviv or something and tell me who's on the other end.
It's hilarious.
Yeah, fucking Eric Prince sent Joe and me.
I don't know. Maybe I'll just do a card trick. Keep it light.
Yeah, let's do a card trick.
All right.
That's lighter than Israel.
I don't know. Yeah. They just bring it back to card tricks. I don't even know what type of card trick I'll do. But
all right, what kind of
I don't even know.
fucking twisted deck is this? This isn't from
It's a
the
regular deck. You
Tropicana.
can shuffle it.
Okay. Any way I can shuffle
Sure,
it?
yeah.
Like the
Knock.
casino shuffle?
Knock yourself out. You shuffle it badly, you can do that too.
Oh, now you're shitting on my shuffling, huh? Oh, I knew we forgot to turn that on. Sorry, Joe.
No, it's on. It just.
It was going. Oh, it was going off.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I can just show you some sleight of hand stuff.
Yeah, show me some sleight of hand stuff.
All right,
Chris
take one.
Ramsay.
Take one.
You look over
All
there.
right, that's fine. Here, take one.
Okay. Look. Turn around. Turn around. Okay.
Got it.
I got it.
All
I
right.
haven't looked at it yet.
Oh, look at it.
Oh. Okay.
All right, put it back. Put it back.
Just turn around.
Gone, right?
Yeah, do something with it.
I know. I actually lost it. I don't know what it is. Hold on. That's not it, right?
No.
What was the card?
Queen
Oh.
of Spades.
Are you sure about that?
I'm positive. Yeah, it's Queen of Spades. I'm dead serious.
That's wild.
Did I just get him?
No, look.
Son of a
See, oh,
bitch!
no.
What the fuck?
No, watch. Look. It's the here. Sit down. I'll show you something. Really, how many cameras are on?
Oh, I thought I got
All right,
it.
ready? Watch. Queen of Spades.
Uh-huh.
Goes right there. See how that works? Watch it. Queen of Spades. Look.
Uh-huh. No, I'm still not tracking.
All right. Have a look at it. Here's what's crazy is that you shuffle this.
Yeah.
Still right here, right? All right, one more time. I'll show you very slowly. It'll travel to my pocket. Queen of Spades, you see it? Watch. Already in my back pocket. Already there. Watch the replay. Sorry. Sleight of hand.
Joe, I don't like this.
Here,
I don't
right.
like this sorcery.
Try. This is sleight of hand. This isn't sorcery. Here, take one. Take one.
You gotta flip.
What do you mean?
You gotta turn around.
I have to turn around?
Right.
All right, here, go.
You're on my show. Okay.
Got it?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Here, actually, let's try this. Let's have you sign it. Here, take that, sign it. I'll turn around so I don't see it. Sign the face of it.
The face of
Yeah,
it.
so I can't see what type of card you have. I'll turn around. Here, go. Let me know when that's done. Good?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Take
Wait,
the card.
no, I gotta.
Let me take the card. I promise you. I promise you. Nah. All right. I'm not looking. Looking away. All right. It's going in the deck. Yes?
All the way.
Okay.
Where's your pinky?
Pinky
Your
here.
other. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Here. Hold your hand out.
You don't have 6 fingers, do you?
No, hold your hand out. Put your other hand on top. Cover it up for me. Cover it up. I'm gonna reach in there. Not too hard. I have to reach in there. Don't
Pause.
cover it up too hard.
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna reach in there. That's not it, right?
No.
Okay, I messed up. Hold on. Give me one more chance here. Oh, I got it. All right, don't move. Stay there, Julian. Don't move. What if I made this disappear? Would that make up for messing up?
Uh-huh.
1, 2, 3, gone. We'll never see it again. It's gone forever. All right, the back of my hand. But what if I made the whole deck? What if I made the whole deck you're holding onto right now completely vanish from inside your hands?
No. You're not going to make it vanish. I can feel it. It's right there.
Yeah? Ready?
What the fuck? What the fuck? Get the close up on that. What the fuck is that? What did you do? What the fuck? I don't like that. I like the alien talk better. Let's go back to that.
Here, there we go. Back. Get the cards back.
Is that like an Elmer super glue, like Element 115 deck?
Yeah, exactly. Makes the cards transparent too.
Did Bob Lazar give you that? Oh,
Yep.
that's crazy.
Isn't that cool?
I hope people can appreciate that on camera.
I mean,
that shit was nuts.
Sleight of hand's always better in person. They're gonna probably pick up on something on camera for sure. But yeah, we'll leave it as is.
Okay. You learned all that in a dimly lit bar?
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, it's a good place to practice.
Yeah,
I
it's a great
agree, but
place.
still, like, do you go to classes for that?
Yeah,
Like,
just
you
learn-
just self-taught everything. Come on, let go of my light. This is crazy.
Be watching the
bro.
replay. I'm trying to figure out how many angles you got on me here. I'm like, oh god,
Do you ever?
that one's gonna hurt
Yeah,
me.
there's like six guys.
Yeah.
But like, do you ever like fuck with some of your guests when they're coming in at first to get them off kilter?
Not to get him off. No. It's always
You're like,
that-
all right, Travis Walton, we're gonna find out the truth today, pal.
Travis loved the magic. You know, I hung out with Travis the night before. Usually when I have guests over, they stay for 2 nights. So we're up in Canada, so we'll fly them in and we put them up in a hotel. Then I have dinner with them. I get to know them. Next day we go for breakfast, and then we pod, and then we hang out
Oh
afterwards.
wow, you really hang out with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, people like that in different styles. I kind of like to go in. I like to hang out after
Yeah.
sometimes.
Going raw.
But like pause. But you know, I like when people come in here and I'm like, all right, let's feel each other out on camera again. Pause.
Pause.
You know what I mean? It's like
Raw dog your
but-
guest, you know.
But then I God damn it. Pause. But I do talk to a lot of guys where that's like you kind of get in the zone. And I've done it before, like where you hang out with them for a few hours and it really flows right into the podcast too.
That's true.
But so you do that every time.
Yeah. Yeah, I like hanging out with them, and I know they're coming in from like far because we're in Canada, so I like showing them a good time, make sure they're taken care of.
Yeah.
I'll usually perform for them. I did that's when I had Travis over, and Travis brought his grandson, and so we were waiting for dinner, and I did like an impromptu little mentalism show for them, and just
that'd be cool.
just for fun, and they loved it. But yeah, I'll do that. I think it's a fun way to break the ice. Yeah.
You did a podcast around the same time I did with James.
Yep.
Back in January. Was that the first time you had ever really talked with James, or did you know him before? James
No,
Fox?
I only met him at the congressional hearing, and then I did.
Oh, in November.
Yep.
Got it.
And then I did some magic for him there, and he's like James, like a giant kid, right?
Oh yeah.
Loves magic.
No.
Yeah, he's so fun.
How on earth did you do that? Oh my
So good.
god! Oh, did you see that? Oh my god!
He's the best spectator.
Yes, he's awesome.
Everything is magic to him, so showing him magic is doubly so. So he was great. Yeah.
What did you think of if you met him at the congressional hearing? I forgot you went that. That was the one in November.
Yep.
So I'm trying to think who talked there. Lou talked there.
Yep.
Who else was talking at that?
It was Lou, Mike Gold, the guy from NASA,
Okay.
Schellenberger, and Tim Gallaudet.
So that was like kind of one of the first ones where they were actually taking stuff on the record publicly in front of Congress. There've been a couple before that, but what did you make of all that? Did you think, all right, this is just surface level, like, hey, congratulations, participation trophy, it's a start, or was it more like you felt like it got somewhere?
Hard to say, because I think when you're in that room, you feel like it has way more importance than when you're watching it on TV. I can say that. So like sitting in that room, like I think the immensity of it wasn't lost on me. Like, as a Canadian magician, I'm sitting courtside in Congress for like a UFO hearing. Like, that shit blew my mind. Just that, right? So, seeing it from that lens, I think it was much more earth-shattering, groundbreaking, and like pushing the boundaries than watching it. Because hindsight, I'll be like, oh yeah, okay, I guess there was, this and that or whatever. You go back and forth, but being there is really intense. But I think it's good. I think it's good that we're talking about it no matter what. It comes down to, even if people are psy-opping the UFO space, or people are grifting or making TV shows or dramatizations of things that didn't happen, or saying, oh, it's all my lab stuff or whatever it is, they're all talking about it. And I think that's good. I think it moves the needle as a society, as us just sort of accepting it as a reality. I think the more we hear about it, the better, even if it's in not such a favorable tone. I still think it's good. I don't think there's a bad way to talk about UFOs. I think as long as you're talking about it, you're keeping it in people's sort of cultural zeitgeist. And then from there, people will hopefully make their own decisions based on, whatever evidence they're looking through. But so I think it's good. I think it's good that we have these hearings. I don't think there's anything bad about it.
Here's one way I look at it where it could go the wrong way, right? If I cook the greatest burger ever, let's say I'm a 5-star Michelin chef, and I get one of those fucking Kobe burgers, I cook it perfectly, I measure like the density of it, like the whole bit, and I go to serve it to someone. And when they put the rest of the burger together in the kitchen with the lettuce and tomatoes, they put lettuce and tomatoes on it that are molded and have some worms on it. Yeah. Okay. Now I cooked a perfect burger. And let's even say the mold and the worms technically never touch the burger. Mm-hmm. If I go serve that burger to the customer and they open it up and look at it and see that, they go, ugh! Mm-hmm. And they're like, give me a new one. That's crazy. Yeah. And they want a whole new burger, even though the burger hasn't been touched. Like the good meat right there, they don't want you to come back with that same burger and new lettuce and tomato and bread to just get rid of the bad shit. Sure. They want a whole new thing. And the thing I worry about with anything related to stuff that is not of this earth, that again, I believe exists. It's just like what's the medium and truth through which we're getting it. The thing I worry about is getting the zone flooded with so much information that is straight up wrong or lies or misinformation that shrouds pieces that could be truthful, such that burger of truth gets forgotten about and it's thrown out, baby out with the bathwater. Mm-hmm. Do you ever worry about that with some of the guys who come forward and some of the stories that maybe it seems like, that seems a little weird?
No, because if you're lying about something, why are you lying about it? Why are you lying about something? You know what I mean? Like why are you talking about something if it's not there? Like, so I think, if you're talking about it, we're talking about UFOs. So if you're sitting there having congressional hearings about UFOs that don't exist, I think it's just as important. I think if you're going on record time and time again, month after month, saying UFOs are not real, I think it's just as valuable as if you're going in Congress and saying they are real.
Meaning just introducing it into the zeitgeist.
Yeah, you keep saying it. You keep saying UFOs aren't real. I was like, okay. What's your, you know what I mean? Like I think as long as you bring it up, you're keeping it alive. It's like people who, from like a religious standpoint, people who go like, I don't believe in God. I don't believe in God. I don't believe in God. It's like, all right, bro, why you keep bringing them up?
Makes you think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if we're, as long as it's in our psyche, the UFO thing, which I think it always is now. I don't think there's any way we go back on that now. I think we've gone too far in to come back out. I don't think there's ever going to be a dark ages where we just stop caring about the UFO thing. I think we're in now. And sure, there's going to be people say it don't exist. There's going to be people saying it does exist, but there's going to be more of both of those people as we move forward. And that's just more talk about the subject. That's more, interest there. whether good or bad or like real or not real. It's like these people, you know, who go on social media just to debunk everything. It's like that's all they do. It's like, you know, they're funny because those people are like the ones who call a lot of the researchers grifters. But it's like, where are you getting your money from? You're out here just making a living, like telling people UFOs are not real. How? How are you making a living?
They're still in the industry, you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about it every day. You're arguably talking about UFOs more than I am. How? Where's that money coming from? This is wild. That should be looked into. Not people making money talking about UFOs. How about people making money saying UFOs are not real?
Well, I think you should
Is that your whole
distribute
thing?
it. Yeah, I think you should distribute it and look at it across the board and say, all right, who's really just saying shit to say shit here, regardless of what direction it is.
It's just crazy to me. It's like, that's your whole job.
Yeah.
Like, you spending more time on social media than I do, and I get paid for it.
Yeah.
It's wild.
The thing is, like, there are unexplainable historical records throughout human history that point to things like, I'm not saying what it is specifically or whatever, but things that don't make sense. And I'm not just talking about like pyramids conspiracies or something like that. I'm talking about legit written down, like, wait, what did they just say about 3-foot people coming from the sky and fucking minus, you know, or in 2000 BC in South America? Like, you see stuff like this, and when you see it over and over again, it's not like some fucking giant, like 8,000-year Psy-Op or something. You know what I mean? I'm not saying it's aliens, but like again, there, like we said it a few times today, but there is a there. And so if you're like completely throwing that out and not considering it, that's kind of nuts. But the reality is, before 2017, that's kind of what people did. Yeah. I mean, this was like you were crazy if you. It was like, he's one of those. Like if you talked about UFOs and then boom, they come into the New York Times and you know you get someone from the Pentagon saying, "Hey, we got some documents on this," and people are like, "Oh, now it's safe to talk about it." It's a shame that it took that, but like I agree with you, it's now like in the zeitgeist to the point that it's hard to get out. The place where I might disagree with you is that if the zone is flooded with way too much bullshit over time, that the average person is like, "What did that guy say last week again?" Oh, yeah, and then that was, all right, you know what? Fuck this stuff. I could see the general, I'm not talking about the people that are fans of this that are genuinely curious about all of it or smart about it like you. I'm talking about the average person who you got to get on board. I do feel like we got to be careful with how much gets flooded into the zone because it's going to lose people.
Yeah, be it as it may, I think it's fine if it loses people. I don't think that, you know, I don't think aliens care. You know, the bottom line, I don't think they give a shit if you believe in them or not. Yeah. Like, so, you know, if it makes you happy to just ignore it completely, that's cool too. I don't have anything against someone who doesn't want to entertain the idea. That's a choice that you can make, and that's totally cool. I'm not out on a crusade to convince people. I hope that people who are on a similar journey end up finding a video that I made and that they go, "Oh, this guy gets it." Or, you know, I'm there, I'm right there. That's who my videos are for. And it seems like that audience is growing. So the audience that I have, like the videos that I make aren't for the skeptic. Although if you're skeptic and curious, watch the video by all means. And if you want to shut it off, unsubscribe and block me, do that too. I don't care. But hopefully it reaches an audience that thinks similarly. And that audience, like I said, seems to be growing, which is a good sign.
Do you think there's a world in which, not naming any specific one, but you know, a form or some forms of organized religion can exist with a known understanding that aliens who are far superior to us do exist as well?
Yeah. Yeah, like the Vatican specifically, you mean? Like,
it could be any of them, but yeah, sure. Go with that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely believe from what I've read, you know, I've only read a limited amount. I'm not an expert on the matter, but Diana Pasulka's work on that stuff and how there does seem to be some narrative shifting in the translations from a lot of the original texts to what made it into, you know, people's Bibles or what have you. And so I do think there might be, changing a word here or there. For what reason? One can speculate that, yeah, maybe they're, they don't want people to know about a certain other presence. I don't know. That would be interesting. That is the ultimate conspiracy, but then my practical mind goes, there's a comedian who he said it so beautifully. He goes, after all the world's powers have come together and created the perfect conspiracy, and they did all the things and they're just about done. They go, only one thing left to do, plant the clues. Right? It's like, let's get the guy who does the Federal Reserve to team up with the guy who does Mad Magazine and like work on, it's like, what are we do? So there is that.
You got to leave him a treasure map.
Yeah, exactly. So the whole Da Vinci Code, wild goose chase, I think is fun and entertaining. I don't think is a big a reality as people make it out to be. I don't think there is like this one power.
You're probably right about that, because I think we ignore, in a lot of these conversations where we talk about this, we ignore human fallacy and human incentives, right?
Yeah.
Which includes the worst downside.
Yep.
And I think that there are different separately motivated groups of people who, in conjunction of taking whatever actions they do, may create this full reality that, from the outside looking in to you and me, might look like all these people are working together. Right.
Yeah.
And there are, and to be clear, there absolutely are conspiracies, and there are people who want to do things bad in the world and that do that. But I'm saying, like, all together,
like organized.
It's
probably not as organized as we think it is.
It's probably more like just a lot of a lot of pieces of really foul stuff. That
you meet like a lawmaker and you go, oh, he's dumb,
right? That's what I'm saying.
Like, how could he keep his mouth shut about anything?
Yes.
They'll say the wildest shit sometimes, on Twitter and stuff. And you're just like, what?
Yeah.
I thought you guys were like the gatekeepers. Nope. You're just saying everything that someone told you.
Yeah,
just
whatever's on the teleprompter.
Wild.
Yeah.
Somebody just told you something, and you're like, the next day you're like tweeting about it. I'm like, oh, okay. So these aren't the people.
Yeah. I mean, you live up in Canada. You see that up and close up there. Holy shit. Some of the things those guys say.
I know.
They make our guys look smart, and I don't think our guys are too smart.
Yeah, it's insane to me that, like, we put a lot of stock into, like, we always say the government is this like overarching, sort of umbrella corporation. But when you meet them individually, you go, oh, these are just dumb people like me.
Yeah.
They're not any smarter. Okay, sure, they maybe know more about law or more about this, but like the decisions they're making are full of mistakes, just like the ones that I would make. And so it is hard for me to fathom that, like, there is a select few that control everything when there's so many variables of, strange and but one thing that I will say is, like you said, there are incentives and there are ways to get people to do things or to not say things. That is true. There are people that are being threatened, to keep this a secret. That is no secret. And there are people who are being paid off. There are people stuck in like lifelong NDAs and their families are being threatened. So that does exist. And if you go back to the Manhattan Project, if you think we can't keep a secret, on that level, we kind of did already.
We did.
And
what else even happened there too, by the way?
That's right. Yeah. The offshoots of that is probably what we're dealing with today with the phenomenon, actually. You've had a few Townsend Brown discussions with Jesse, I'm sure.
Yeah, dude, Jesse blows me away with his historical understanding of everything and how it ties together. He's so into it.
Especially the atomic period.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But you have that, but also think about this. Like, these guys, they were considered heroes, patriots for keeping a secret, right? They were, and I think a lot of those guys were sort of grandfathered into the UFO space, and that mentality was too.
What do you mean grandfathered into?
As
the
in,
UFO
like,
space?
Hey, you kept your mouth shut about that, and you're a hero, so we need you to keep your mouth shut about this and be a patriot.
Don't talk about those paperclip Nazis and the UFOs.
Do you know what I mean? Because it was for the greater good type deal, right? So I think with the UFO programs, it's the same thing. I think a lot of these guys are just, I think the people they look for in these programs are like patriots above all. I think like you're serving your country and that's why you got to take this to the grave because it's for the greater good type deal. And I think that's a good starting point other than threatening and NDAs and whatnot. So I think a lot of it comes down to people doing what they feel is right, and who knows, they might be doing what is right by keeping it a secret.
Yeah, it's where it gets weird because it's like, what do people deserve to know too?
Yeah.
You know, it's a part of your existence here on Earth, like that knowledge to understand. Like if you also could share in some of that intelligence, if that is in fact what exists, like, hey, this is what we know exists, this is where it is, or whatever, that is part of the meaning of life question. And it gets to who are you to gatekeep that, but also, you know, they can simulate what would happen to society if they release that information.
Maybe it triggers
too.
an event that ends it all.
That's right.
Yeah.
So it gets really scary. It's like that old Bob Salas story James Fox has talked about before when he's talking about, you know, the nuclear bases and, you know, the alleged UFOs that came there. It's like, it's almost like they were taking matches out of the hands of a baby.
Yeah.
It's like we're just that baby playing with matches.
Of course. I think so. I think that would be, you know, if you had a baby show up with a shotgun, you know, you'd be like, wow,
That's weird.
He doesn't know how that works.
Yeah.
And then he shoots it and you go, oh shit, take the shotgun, get the shotgun away from him.
One of those little AI babies.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, real quick, I got to go to the bathroom, so let's take a quick break. But it's funny you brought up Los Alamos. I want to talk about that, and we got to get to some Lazar stuff, too.
All right, yeah.
All right, cool. Thank you guys for watching the episode. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button and smash that like button on the video. They're both a huge, huge help. And if you would like to follow me on Instagram and X, those links are in my description below.